right, well, I guess this is the Every Second Matters for March. Sent out some links and got links over on Patreon for anybody who wants to jump in. Otherwise, we'll just sit here for a bit and see if anybody joins in. Sent out some links and that's the echo. It's kind of so we won't listen to that. I'm just working on stuff, so I guess I'll just screen share and work on that until anybody shows up. Is there anything live out there that I can listen to? Probably nothing live. There might be something on a podcast out there, maybe. Nothing new. So we'll see if anybody jumps in. Oh, it's nobody even watching. It's 0 viewers, so nobody's even watching today. So Every Second Matters is an awareness campaign that started in the end of 2013 after the perceived lack of, or the perceived apathy, the lack of grassroots efforts, and sort of a collaborative exercise to come up with something to keep people aware of Second Amendment issues on a regular basis. So DJ Sini's here, but now we're seeing 2 people there, so that's me and you, I guess. So the idea was to do something on the regular so that we could continue awareness, whatever, activism, all the positive stuff in the times when we're not at risk or when we're not under attack or whatever you want to say, and hopefully be stronger at those times when we are. I don't know if that's been a success or not. I don't know how to gauge that, if it's a success or not. So some people continue to do it and others don't, and then some people come around and come back, and other people never come back, and other people are here consistently. And hey, what do you know? It's just like a lot of things, just sort of is evolving to exist as you're watching it. So you're watching it happen right now. I send out links to everybody I know that's worth a shit, worth a crap in the industry, not the industry, but in the 2A community. And sometimes people show up and we have awesome conversations in these kind of shows. Sometimes nobody shows up and it's boring. And we'll see what happens. It is the result of whatever happens, right? So we'll see. Right on. So if anybody's got anything to chat about, jump in and chat about it, or use the text chat. There's lots of ways to use the interactive internet that we got out here. But it's pretty boring if I gotta keep talking, so I'm not gonna. Man, I wish I had okay to listen to what I've been listening to. The Texas Ranger talking about his gig, but I don't. So Walt probably wouldn't care if I listened to his, and I didn't really listen to this last one. So this is 9.5 minutes of Walt. I think he's complaining or mansplaining something. I didn't listen to it.
Today's video is about 2 things. The first, an uncomfortable truth about the Ninth Circuit that we need to acknowledge. There are many court cases going through the Ninth Circuit, and frankly, if we don't acknowledge that realistically, we're going to have issues. Okay? The second is on the coverage around these Ninth Circuit issues, particularly the firearms-related ones that we see here on YouTube. The coverage is not the best. Now, I don't need to call out anyone in particular because by saying Ninth Circuit court case update, you know who I'm talking about.
I don't know who's talking about.
that in and of itself is a bit of a problem, but we'll double back to all that at the end. So first,
If you know
what
who
is
he's
the
talking about, let me
uncomfortable truth
know.
with the Ninth Circuit? Well, if we look at the state of California, particularly Becerra's behavior historically on these cases, Kamala Harris's behavior before, if we look at whoever the district attorney is, we can see that they will always petition for en banc rulings. Just about all of the time, unless they're winning, they will go for these cases en banc.
I don't know what that means either.
And what that means is instead of the original panel sitting down and discussing these things, they're going to get a bigger panel with more judges. And the Ninth Circuit is a very large circuit with about 29 or so judges, I believe. This is a lot of judges to pick from. When these judges are picked for these panels, whether it's en banc or not, you should know what the probability is that you will get an appointee, basically, that was picked by someone with an R or a D next to their name. About a little under 45% of the current sitting Ninth Circuit appellate court judges, about a little under 45%, are Republican appointees. Okay? That does not mean that the appointees themselves are Republicans, right? It means that they were appointed by Republicans. But we can infer that they probably share a lot of the background with understanding, interpretation, thoughts on jurisprudence with whoever appointed them. Enough to get the appointment. And I think that's a pretty reasonable presumption. That also means, right, in that case, that 55% of the current active judges on the circuit, about 55% were appointed by people with a D at the end of the name, Democrats, the Democratic Party. So what does that mean? The state is always going to petition for a bigger panel after they lose a case. At least on these issues, it seems like that's pretty much what they always do. They're going to be taking these up, and the odds of having more Democratic Party appointed judges on that panel significantly higher with the present panel. By the way, if somehow they could tap retired judges, the odds shift slightly more to our favor. I think because of like Reagan and George H.W. Bush appointees and such. They'd be about 48% Republican, a little shy of that. The 52% Democrat appointees, Democratic appointees. So that would be a different kind of scenario a little bit. But yeah, the odds are kind of in the House's favor for the blue state, you know? We need to have an honest discussion about that because the state's behavior is to leverage the system in such a way to get more chances to force a roll of a loss. And then we have to talk about when these things are then appealed and taken to the Supreme Court after we lose en banc, which is more probable if we were merely looking at the judges and who they were appointed by and making an inference based off of ideology. When these things go to SCOTUS, we have to be real. Will SCOTUS actually hear the 2A case? It's not likely, right? Not historically likely. There have been some changes made to SCOTUS, and I think they've taken on one 2A case, and then Caniglia v. Strom, which is 2A tangential. It's mostly a Fourth Amendment case, right? We discussed that before. But yeah, the Supreme Court's not really keen on taking a lot of these cases. So what that means for your coverage here is that this coverage going off saying, oh, we've made a whole bunch of reasonable arguments coming from the lawyers who are making said arguments, coming from the legal teams of the lawyers who are actually actively litigating and making those arguments. Yeah, it makes sense that they would comment and they would say that, of course, we've made compelling arguments and of course we think we're going to win. They're lawyers. They are literally paid to say that. Okay. And if they didn't feel a win, I wouldn't want them arguing the case, frankly. So all that makes sense. But the issue is in interpretation on the audience's side of things, meaning you, the viewer. You, the viewer, are going through Miller v. Becerra, Duncan v. Becerra, insert name v. Becerra cases at this point. There's many. You're going through and you're evaluating all of these cases from California, testing California's insane assault weapons laws, ammo background check laws, magazine restriction laws, age of who can get the weapon, who can purchase a weapon or not, all of this stuff. You're going through all of it. And you're going up against a court where realistically, if you just looked at it, odds are you're going to lose. And odds are if you lose, you won't be heard by SCOTUS. So the question, I think, becomes, how should this be covered instead? How should these lawyers be discussing these matters, knowing that they're up against this significant obstacle? Should the viewer be made aware?
You're going to rewatch 20 minutes and nothing, or however long this has been, 11 minutes and nothing. There's nothing to rewatch. We've been sitting here in silence. Nobody's showing up this month. I think maybe one time people showed up at the beginning, but not too often. Was I muted? I'm listening to Walt over here talk about something where I don't know what he's saying, really.
Of this obstacle instead of the overconfidence, perhaps, of the lawyers. Should the lawyers demonstrate why they have such confidence in light of this fact specifically? I think that would be good coverage, and I would like to see that. Now, I've been critical of one particular YouTuber's coverage on Ninth Circuit issues, and that's something that I've pointed out before. I said, hey, look, we don't need an update every time a judge drops a pin, right? And we need to cover other cases where other important things are going on, and we need to discuss realistic odds of things winning. We need to not be given false hope. Those are the criticisms that I have. Some of those I've voiced before. Some of them I'm voicing now. This is something where we need to have that discussion, because the worst thing that you could think for your rights is that some activist organization is coming to save you. You are the cavalry. No one else is coming. You can't bet on it. Maybe they come, but you can't bet on it. Your rights have to be represented and defended by you. You cannot count on another person to do that work for you. You can hope, you can pray. That doesn't mean that they're coming to save you. And the issue with this narrative, the issue with selling such activism, selling such, we're going to come and save you, we're going to win for the Second Amendment. The issue now is that it creates kind of a narrative where people don't see how their direct involvement matters. They think throwing a few bucks at a cause is sufficient, when in reality, it's not. In reality, what we need is much more. What we need is, frankly, just more people standing up and defending their rights, more people participating directly with their democracy. Don't think that any one group is going to come and save you. Keep your head level with the facts of the playing field. And by all means, please do not interpret the information I'm giving you as though it's the only relevant information. You should listen to other arguments. You should hear out other additional details on specifics of any of these cases and take that into consideration. But just take this fact into consideration as well. I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to reading those comments below.
All right, well, that was Walt talking about...
How much responsibility do you feel you have, particularly
What?
towards the alt-right, who, as you say, some of them have enjoyed your work and say,
No,
I'm not
they
one
haven't.
of I'm not one of you guys. I'm not with you guys.
They have.
I'm not one of you guys. I'm not with you guys. That's what she says. Oh, shit.
Howdy.
DJ.
Celebrating 2A Tuesday, the Every Second Matters edition. How you doing today?
So far, so good. How's it going in Nebraska?
Nebraska is considerably better than it was just a few short weeks ago. We're going to be in the 50s. today, and I got some errands to run later this afternoon. So I'm going to go out, get some sun, and enjoy the warm weather. What is it that you're working on right there?
Just a project. Same old, same old.
Is that the progression of 2A organizations that you talked about at one time?
This here is sort of a timeline, I guess.
Yeah. So how far back does it go?
To the beginning of stuff that's in it, 1900 or beginning of the 1900s, I guess, 1700s.
Oh, wow. What were some of the first or earliest organizations? Is that like how old is the NRA first?
Well, give me. Oh, all right, hold on.
Oh,
The NRA is from 1871, so
Oh.
they start there, unless something starts before that I'm not aware of. But that's pretty much where they start, and that's probably. This is just guns because I don't know anything else, or I don't have time to do anything besides that. But once this is done, then it's possible to lay this down next to, I don't know, something else. Like what other clubs existed in 1871?
Hmm.
Right?
So-
Was there
so
clubs before 1871, or was that the beginning of clubs? Like, were people living in farms? 1871 is sort of like, I know that it's 20 years after the percussion cap, the 22 short was invented. So it was just 20 years after a bored through cylinder existed. Where were we couldn't have had an industrial revolution if the machines that created the industrial revolution hadn't been invented yet, or we were right in the midst of it, so that's child labor and cities are shitty. And what I'm saying, like, did we have an NRA before that? Like, is there a possibility to have something? So anyway, so then you get 1934 is 60 years after that. Anyway, so this is that layer, this is the gun rights layer of it, but hopefully it can be used to lay it down on other timelines or in the rest of history to see, use it in multiple ways maybe. Anyway, I don't know where you were asking, but that's where I went with that.
no, yeah, absolutely. That answers it primarily. One of the things that I would be curious to know is if you, when you get some time, would develop a list of like gun clubs, as in organizations that were around. I got to imagine there were some by the late 18th century that started on the East Coast where shooters gathered at ranges and did things. It'd be interesting to know shooting club history.
Well, Illinois State Rifle Association, 1903. Texas State Rifle Association, 1918. Rhode Island, something, TA, whatever that is. Rhode Island, how would that be? I gotta go over here and look. Rhode Island Trap Shooting Association. So, like I say, if you don't have revolvers, you can't have a revolver club. So rifles were all there was. And then in 1903, they had the Militia Act, right? So you can't have, well, you didn't have national level shit until the nation started asking for it and then doing it. So you have the Second Amendment. When is the Second Amendment?
1789.
I don't have it in here. So when the hell is it ratified? I have 1791. Is that the right date?
Oh, yeah, I think that's right.
Oh, wait, right here it said ratified 1791. So I guess I should write that in here.
Yeah, I stand corrected. So I remember seeing another content creator do something on the Newport Rifle Club. Are they in your list? Because I think they said something like they're the oldest rifle club in the country, or something like that.
Well, then they're hidden because I never heard of them. Did you ever hear of them before?
Newport? No, I hadn't until that. And there was an interview conducted. think it was probably the operations manager or somebody like that. I don't think it was a family member related to any of the founding people.
Damn it! What did I just say that was now?
Newport Rifle Club?
No, I don't care about. No, the whatever the hell we just said. The Second Amendment date.
1791.
So I'm just going to put that right there. So you have 1791 with the Second Amendment first being ratified. So that means that basically that we had a constitution, and a bunch of people were probably like, I don't want no constitution. We're about to get invaded by Britain. And if we have a constitution, then they're going to kill us first. So why don't we just comply and take these, infringements and be done with it and just deal with it, right? Because that's cool. So then, so we have a constitution, and then a couple minutes later we have the militia acts. Where is that the something rebellion? The hell, where we started taxing booze or something, and then
The
you have
Volstead Act?
no.
No. Okay.
Anyway, so basically, I'm just saying like this is just a bunch of stuff that's written, but it's not. You can't take it as the only things that existed. These are just the 2A things. So anyway, that's all I'm getting at. Is from 1791 when you have the Second Amendment, and I guess the beginning of the country ish, till 1900 till what 17 whatever I just said when the NRA starts convented. There has to be clubs, I guess, but is there national clubs? So
Yeah,
if you don't,
good
if you
question.
have basically, oh, I put 1971. That's probably not good. 1791. That gives you 100 and 210 years before there's another. No, 110 years before there's an any kind of law that starts making gun clubs. Basically, the NRA is sort of the only thing I know of before the Dick Act, which is when they in 1903 when they start making the Springfield and all the guards. So the National Guard and all the state rifle associations come from that. Basically, that's when they go, we can't shoot good, so let's start practicing more. Let's make that a thing. So that's when you start seeing, at least most of the stuff I'm familiar with, the people that have history. So if somebody wants to say, I've been alive longer than that, all they got to do is prove it. But like I say, most of the stuff that's on this list is me going online and looking around and finding things. So if there's something out there that's obscure, how the hell am I supposed to know? Like, I guess there's older things. I'm not saying this is a complete list. It's just what I'm able to discover or find. I go like this all the time. If you know stuff I don't have on my list, tell me. And nobody told me about that one ever before. So what'd you say it was called?
Newport Rifle Club?
Yeah, so that's just some actual entity of a rifle club, unless they're the, done something, just existing in a basement. That's like being on Discord. Oh, I did a bunch of important shit on Discord. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know.
Where is it? Well, it's hidden on Discord. Oh, okay. I thought you did a bunch of important shit. Oh, we did. And we did it before anybody. Oh, where is it? It's hidden on Discord. Well, okay. So I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like, what the hell? I'm not going to have every single thing that ever existed. That's
Oh, no, but I certainly thought that maybe the first one, or what portends to be, would be worth noting. But yeah, no big deal. And yeah, I'm sorry about the Volstead Act. The Volstead Act is the one that provided for the enforcement of the 18th Amendment. It was the 18th that made it illegal. But yeah, having those parallels in history is a really great thing to think about. And
I
don't.
don't think it exists yet. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we have. I haven't seen anything that lists just our gun laws as a framework to start seeing what else is in there. One of my things is one of the reasons I'm trying to figure this all out is because it's stuff like, when did a washing machine happen? When did the safety pin? Because the guy that invented something, either the bored through cylinder or somebody in the inventor's deck invented the sewing, the safety pin. and the sewing machine are two different people. But anyway, so as I was discovering stuff from the firearms inventors deck, right? Like looking who all invented guns, I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. Like that's when the fountain pen or that's when the typewriter was invented, right? So these people are running around acting like guns are a scourge or guns are horrible, and it's like, well, guns have been around longer than a typewriter. You know, what does that kernel of knowledge do to a discussion in the future, right? So that I figured it'd be interesting to see how a timeline of firearms in 2A, specifically 2A, because that's all I care about, right? And guns is always going to be there, but 2A history is relevant to it. So how if you lay down 2A history, and then you can lay down all the other history that must be written, like somebody who cares about hot air ballooning probably wrote down their history already, right? Because if for some reason somebody had time to do that, or the history of 7-layer cakes, or the history of how to exterminate bugs out of fields or something, right? Like all that kind of history might have been written down by their industry or some hobbyist or whatever. So I don't know if anybody's ever done it for 2A, at least not laying it just down so everybody can use it. So once that exists, like I say, I don't know. I personally think that we're the puppets of a bunch of trends, right? We're the puppet of what I keep calling it. What's the word I'm looking for? Cycles, right? And I see it all the damn time. I just saw it again the other day. We get a bunch of people introducing themselves all the damn time, and I get frustrated. Why is everybody constantly introducing themselves? Like, how many are we insane or like we stupid? Do we forget each other? Why are we constantly introducing each other? Never get.
You robot into silence in my. You're coming back a little bit there.
Oh yeah, I don't got good internet, but there's nothing I can do about it. Anyway.
Oh, you're back loud and proud.
Huh? I'm just ranting, so there's no point.
Oh well, one of the things I was thinking would be interest that maybe to other people than myself, to know a little bit more about manufacturers and a timeline associated with that. I know because I have the calendar and the cards, many of the things that you've provided. Maybe that could be added at some point when you have the time.
Yeah, I think the industry in there, because industry isn't worth a shit, and industry can pay for its own history, an archive. But I hear you. Like I just every time I think about it, because right now this is an attempt to put it all in a more, because now I can go to full page and not be constricted to number of pages. Where before I had to fold a piece of paper in half, so it had to all be small. So as I can spread out the info and format it into, like a wiki, basically I'm just taking the website and putting it on paper. It's, it's at 50 something pages without the industry. And that's 50 something pages without addressing, that's just the resource side. That's none of the communication side of the website. So while I do have a lot of industry in there, I think it would add more pages, which for me just cause ink. I don't think it matters one way or the other to anybody else. But what the fuck does the industry do for us? They don't support any of the chicks on this page, right? I keep scrolling past the chicks in the DC project, who I'm going to continue to suggest are the chicks that are our future. And all you got to do to prove me wrong is fund them, let them produce, and then show me how they did not produce a new, future 2A. So when the industry pays them as much as they're paying anybody else who does stupid shit for the industry, then, then the industry's worthwhile. When is the industry going to talk about any of these accessible situations, except for when they need a token, virtue signal, right? Nobody talks about the differently abled or the veterans even for that matter. So fuck industry basically. Like I say, industry's cool, but they're not going anywhere. They're not losing any money. So I hear you. I don't see them. I mean, for me, I look at the things like, I guess, because I was saying about the bored through cylinder or the 22 short. That's when the history was beginning. Like, you can't have anti-gun laws until guns exist, right? And you don't really have guns everywhere with individuals until the Industrial Revolution makes it possible, until Browning creates firearms that can be in everybody's hand, right? I'm guessing at some point the only guns were in cops and the military's hands for the most part, and a couple of cowboys and whoever can afford them. But then the Civil War happens and everybody goes home with their guns. Now everybody has a lot of guns that they didn't have before. These crazy assault revolvers that could shoot 6 fucking rounds. Like, what the hell? Guns shoot 1 round. Except for shotguns for poachers who shoot 2 rounds, right? Because they're unlawful. Or maybe a Derringer thing that shoots 2 rounds because you're an unscrupulous gambler. But, no normal person needs 6 rounds to shoot a deer. What the hell? Like, everybody shot a deer in 1 round back then, or else you were poor and died, right? Or you got hungry and died. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's got to be some of that basic history that evolved into what we got. But once you get past, like, I don't know, machine guns, maybe 1934, once you get the playing field we got today, and then federal laws restrict any evolution and design or whatever, and everybody just gets complacent, then fuck the industry. They don't do shit except, exist. I mean, every once in a while they do something interesting. I do enjoy the industry and everything, but I'm just saying, as far as 2A is concerned, they don't do nothing. They could have easily done things to solidify and create barriers to all this kind of stuff. I don't know if they were just short-sighted or if they had ulterior motives or they're just stupid or what, but we're definitely living in the wake of a bunch of short-sightedness. But they were short-sighted with lead, and they were short-sighted with all kinds of stuff. We're living in a ammo shortage. Is that necessary? Is that strategic? So the industry's not perfect. The industry is us, though. Anyway, into the pigeon.
Yeah, fair, absolutely. So I've made a connection with an inventor, a U.S. inventor, who contributes mightily to the things we've just been talking about twofold. The Industrial Revolution, he's one of the fathers of it. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin in the late 18th century. And the one that relates to firearms is that he's the father of interchangeable parts. And he put that to specific use with firearms very, very early on. So the patterning that followed him, I would suggest, is the foundation from which American firearm manufacturers got their real big boost, or at least a heavy initial one.
Almost. Where do you get that from? From school or from something you've seen recently?
No, a biography. Originally, a biography that I read in the 5th grade, and since then, I seem to remember like some, not a book report, but some paper that I did in perhaps junior high. Haven't read much about it since, just ancillary stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So the olden days, that's what they told us because it fits some fucking narrative. But if you look at it, all right, well, are we back again? Back again?
Yeah.
So for real, the actual history of Eli Whitney was the bitch who stole all the ideas off of Colt, and Colt's revolvers invented interchangeable. Eli Whitney went and seen that because of Colt's famous demonstrations, taking multiple guns apart and putting them all together out of whichever parts. Eli Whitney's like, damn, I could make a cotton gin like that. And what does school tell you? Oh, they're going to tell you the Colt invented the Industrial Revolution and the firearms, small arms specifically, are responsible for the idea of the society they have today. The first world situations, skyscrapers, and all the rest. I want to tell you that. That's why I'm getting bad internet, because they don't want to watch that. But anyway, so that's something that again needs to be illuminated or shined light on. If it's, maybe I'm wrong, but people I've talked to, that's the way its history was.
Wow. I didn't think that I'd get such a significant revision to something I had held on to for 40 years.
Well, we all did. But they teach us in school. So whenever I first seen it, was at one of the museums, and I was like, and then it was like, am I getting flamed here or what? Because I've heard it the other way everywhere. Right? And then the 3 times later, after hearing it that way or reading it that way, I talked to somebody. I'm like, hey, what's his face? But he's got an invite. He didn't show up today, so I don't think he can. What's his face? And he was like, yeah, the way it went down. And it's just about schools basically not wanting credit to American small arms, the concept of a multi-shot.
Well, I'm certainly glad to add that to my fresh lexicon. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm trying to do this is that some of us know at least what the potential deals are, so that we can, all be smarter when we have conversations. Because if we allow ourselves to go on a foundation of anti's premise, then we've already started in a bad position, right? Am I
Indeed.
disconnected? Why does my screen keep blinking? Am I disconnecting completely, or should I quit this?
No, you were scrolling just a few moments ago.
I keep seeing on my, I'm looking over here, right? I keep seeing this flip, like it's blinking over here, like if I'm not connected. Nobody's saying anything, so me and DJ could just talk off there. See how my screen disappeared? So I sent out the links. I'll stick for a little while, but I'm not here to blab. I could bitch and moan to my dog. She listens to me. But if you've got something 2A, right now we've just got Weston saying hello. It's, I guess cordial, but me 2A. So if you got something to say 2A, do it. If you want to someone else, go for or see someone else. Feel free, you got other topics or whatever. It's not like you got to bring topics, but to fill air. Otherwise, I go back and listen to something Walt was complaining about.
Yeah, I had a great adventure at a local gun range with a guy who had not been, I guess he hadn't been into taking his gun to the range for the very first time. He wanted to try out his Glock and 40 cal, and so we did that. And I was able to spread a bit of the 2A message. There were 6 people gathered on the lane farthest from us, and I walked over just to see what was going on. 6 people, there's got to be something interesting. So what was happening there was a gentleman who did not bring his own firearm, but said that he owned one, brought the others with him so that they could all have some time at the range. 2 of them had never even handled a gun, let alone shot one. Another had held one, but never shot it. So there were 3 new firearms people there. When I learned that and that they were shooting a Springfield in 9mm, went over to my bag, grabbed a box of Winchester White Box, took it over, and encouraged them to load it till it was gone. After they came over and thanked me, I told them that I was a 2A activist now, and I encouraged them to seek out some organizations, including our state organization for Nebraska gun owners. And I referred them to Every Second Matters. So I hope that they're out there at some point listening to this if they're not already. And a few of the other organizations that I had to recommend, and some of those that provide solid YouTube content. I didn't know really what goes on Facebook, but that was very encouraging because they were not only smiling before I got there, but they were just absolutely grinning after they had that experience. And having passed that on to some people, I hope that it helps to carry the tide forward. They are some raindrops in that flood.
Doing stuff like that, but then have an eye out, ear out, whatever for that kind of opportunity. But then, yeah, just that's cool, man. That's what it's all about. Because, yeah, it ain't like, yeah, I mean, even what the hell, even if you were trying to sell a shirt or some kind of shotgun or some kind of ammo or something to them, you had a good interaction with them and they had some fun. And, yeah, who knows how many people they're going home to talk about or who they're going to go to work tomorrow or school tomorrow and tell about that. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the best ways to, that one-on-one is one of the best ways to get our message out there. So I encourage everybody. It's often suggested that you take somebody to a range to expose them to firearms and hopefully get them into interest in the Second Amendment and gun rights overall. So, yeah, get out there and do it. Take them to a range. It's a great first-time activity for a lot of folks. It really is.
I feel like another way to get people to be interested in guns would just be like, I don't know, give them $2,000, $3,000 maybe. Be like, this is because of guns, so just like guns now. They're going to be like, all right. I would think that would
short of
that would work on anybody
Sure.
who's like super impartial and also needs money.
You're right. Short of having that kind of resource, the ones that I'll be employing today, as I'm out enjoying the sun and warm weather, will be that I will be wearing my Every Second Matters patch in white on black on my mask, because there are a few errands where that's the legal requirement for entry. In addition to that, I'll be wearing a drop holster, empty. I am, unfortunately, though the Nebraska's Constitution provides for my open carrying a weapon, local statute does not allow it. So I carry empty on the second. And yeah, those are the two things. And a t-shirt, certainly. I've been enjoying your t-shirt series. And I think today I'm going to wear one of Tony's shirts, the 2A4E shirts. Black and blue. It works.
White and blue. Or did you get is there a black and blue one?
No, I meant the black on black for my mask and blue on the shirt. But I would encourage him certainly to offer some other colors. I would support them with more than one, and I've already ordered one for someone else. So
I think the goal is to get the blue so that there's consistency. I mean,
yeah,
just trying to make
I
sure.
think that you actually have told me that before.
Well, he talks about it, but I think, I mean, that would be the point. Because, like I say, he's not trying to make he does have other shirts. So that's the thing. So if he was trying to just get a funny saying or like some other message out there, he does have other ones, and those other ones are different in different way. Like they got different logos and stuff on them too.
Okay. Well, we can find your stuff at gearwebsites.com. Where do we find Tony's shirts, the other shirts?
Oh, I don't know. Probably 2A4E shirts. And then I think it's 1022, but I don't remember. I just always type in 2A4E and then shirts, and then it finds it. The internet finds it.
Got it.
Well, there are 40 something minutes with 6 viewers. I've been doing this since 2013, so I don't expect anybody. I appreciate those that show up, but I'm also not trying to prove nothing. So we'll have, and I know it's doing this in the middle of the day. I'm going to be on some guy's podcast this afternoon. And I wanted to make sure this would end before that. And then, of course, not knowing if this was going to be one of those months where everybody shows up and it's a massive conversation, or it would be the opposite. I had to leave myself enough time to be able to, have a longer show if that was going to happen. But I don't need to run. This is super awkward. It's tough to do work while I'm trying to talk. But if you guys got topics, say it in here. If DJ's got more stuff. I don't want to keep making DJ do stuff. I do appreciate you jumping in. But I'll probably do this like twice more and then quit playing host and quit, because like I say, I don't have all the effort or all the energy in the world to just be a cheerleader for the whole fucking 2A. So people want to jump in, I provide a room and we can have a conversation, or I can hear what's going on outside. Can you hear that?
Yeah, definitely. There's a plane going on overhead, but then we should all get together for the April iteration of the Every Second Matters chat, And I would encourage anybody who catches this chat to show up for a month from now. I'll be here, and hopefully we can reassess the duration of this offering and understand that it is much appreciated, if not well expressed.
I'm still here. I don't care. Like I said, I could sit outside looking at my garden and watching that. That's a bunch of Rumor in Vietnam War planes around with the A-10s here. They do that here, I think, to let the A-10 pilots see what planes were like. And it's new pilots, so it's not old people in them, but I think it's just so the pilots can see what planes are like. It's not really an air show, but they have an air show here every other year. It coordinates with the air show time-wise, but it has nothing to do with the air show. But it means that every year we get to look at that when we live at the airport like this. So that's all I'm saying is I'm sitting here not watching World War II, no, not World War II, the Korean War and Vietnam era fly around for free, absolutely free. But 2A, if people are got something 2A to say. But anyway, so I do the day today, but there ain't no perfect time to do this show. No matter what time you do it, somebody's going to show up. No matter what time you do it, a bunch of people are going to complain. So.
Well, I certainly wish that I was in Arizona and able to check out the A-10s. Those are one of my favorite planes of all time. And get out there.
Your head multiple times a day. You can take them or leave them.
Well, I'm a veteran of air shows, and if I could have one like that in my backyard, I don't think I'd tire of it anytime too soon. But I'll take a look at the sky down towards Strategic Air Command and see if they got anything up in flight today. Contrails abound.
I think this group of pilots flies around, so I can't do just this. This is just one time they do it here in February every year or whatever this is, March.
Oh.
I'm sure they fly around and do this. It must be what they do for a living, is go around and show pilots what old airplanes were like. Probably helps them or something, right? To know what an old airplane's like. But anyway, or maybe they just do it for the pictures, because they definitely take a bunch of pictures while they're up there. It might be just sort of an opportunity for that, just to give pilots must like to have entertainment and things to do. They probably like looking at old planes just because they're pilots. But I don't know. Anyway, now we're at another couple of minutes in. It's weird when there's people out there that don't participate, because then it's like, well, I'll keep talking because there's somebody out there. But then they don't participate, and you're like, oh, it's a bunch of robots or weirdos or whatever. So then it's like, why bother?
Well, at 10 to 1 o'clock in the Central Time Zone, a lot of people are getting back from their lunch breaks or just at work, and hopefully they've enjoyed what's gone so far.
I figure the people that are at work care so much about their jobs than they care about for 2A. So it's the people that are home enjoying 2A that I, would think that would join in today. Or the people that blew off a day of work so that they could 2A. Like this guy. He literally quit his job so that he could 2A full time.
Well, in my defense, I have been talking with NSSF for over an hour now. So I was a little occupied when the stream started.
How rude is that? In other words, NSSF knew this show was starting. And was like, I'm going to call that guy and annoy him.
Keep him off of it.
Sales call? Is it like a sales call? And they wouldn't let
you. Yeah. They were trying to sell me some stuff. They were trying to sell me some advertising. Yeah.
Yeah. So I figured.
Lord.
Weston's excuse is he's working. I understand a lot of people love their jobs more than 2A. That's fine. Love your money. You're providing for your family and paying the taxes for our roads and whatever, joint security, blah, blah, blah. The rest of us will just be unemployed and poorly support 2A.
Provide for the common welfare. I think that's the clause, isn't it?
One of them. But they get to provide for a lot more than that with their taxes.
Right.
They get the opportunity to provide for all kinds of fun benefits that some of us get to entertain ourselves with. I was just listening to a thing with a Texas Ranger. I was just getting into an interview that is going to be 2 hours and a half, 2 hours and 40 minutes long. So it's going to be a good one. And I'm only 32 minutes into it. And every single time I start this year, listen to Mike Ritlin's podcast, Warrior Dog Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every time one of them is like, oh, I'm not going to want to listen to this guy, or I'm not going to want to listen to this interview. This one's going to be boring. Like I listened to the first 5 minutes, and then next thing I know, I'm 3 hours into it. It's like, dang, that is one of the better ones I've listened to. Anyway, this guy's a Texas Ranger, so he does mostly military guys. This will be one of the fewer police ones, but I'm 30 minutes in, and it's already pretty interesting. But anyway, Clover's in Texas. That's why I brought that up.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, if we're talking about 2A, I put out I went live the other night. I did that a little bit before Gizzard Show Friday, and recorded a podcast on some legislation that's moving around here in Texas. So folks are out there, jump over on the channel, check that out, or any podcasting platform. It's on there now. Only about a half hour. So, but we just kind of run through some of the different bills, and man, it's got a couple that were really interesting, like the Made in Texas bill, where it's like essentially it could be NFA items, it could be, whatever, as long as they're made in Texas and they don't leave the state of Texas. Like almost like anything goes, right? Pretty interesting concept. And I got to thinking,
like the Montana bill.
Yeah, I guess. But then I got to thinking, I thought, I mean, you've obviously got, what is it, when federal stuff supersedes or whatever? I mean, we have that potential issue. I don't know how legality works in dealing with that. But I got to thinking, just like reciprocity with, a license to carry or a concealed carry lot, whatever, right? What if you had all these different adjoining states that did the same, made in Oklahoma, made in Arkansas, made in Louisiana, made in Mississippi, and they allowed reciprocity for other made in states? Well, then you could freely travel amongst those states, which you can't even do with NFA stuff, right? You could freely travel within those states. So it would make the NFA moot.
Well, it's the NFA is enforced or has its teeth in interstate commerce. So I don't know if what you're talking about would, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if that would get out of that bite or if that would just still be incorporated in that grasp or whatever. I don't know what the right words are, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But no, I like that. Well, I was going to say, the first, as you were describing it, I was like, I don't like compliance, and that's doing a whole bunch of effort. To me, it's doing a whole bunch of effort, or from one perspective, I guess, it's doing a whole bunch of effort in order to comply with bad infringement, right? Mm-hmm. Instead, spend all that effort and unity and collusion or collaboration or whatever the right word is, to effort to get rid of the thing that's creating the infringement instead of complying. Because my problem is we comply every once in a while. We don't comply all that often, not as many as some of the people would act like. But when we comply, it is a waste of fucking time. Like, I really hate complying because for all those things I just said, you could take all that time and effort that you use to get together and agree to get rid of the thing that you have to comply about or around, right?
Right.
And the worst time, and the problem is every time we comply, every time we do something to legally work within the realm of whatever stupid gray area, dumb, written, poorly asinine law that exists, in a way, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I think it's every time we comply and do what they would call a workaround or a loophole, we would call obliging their stupid ass law, then we enforce the fact that the fence should be wherever they put it. Like, so in other words, they come down, put down a stupid fence, and sometimes they just put down a boundary and say the fence is probably around here somewhere. And we say, where exactly? And they go, oh, I can't believe you're asking me. Oh, I can't believe it. Right. And then they say, oh, it's over here. And we go, okay, we're going to put our thing here. Then they go, oh, I can't believe you put it so close to the fence. Oh, right. Well, right. Why are we even complaining? That's their whole goal. Like, why is there even a fence here? Like, why are we asking you for permission? Right. And that's where we get into the loop. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's the same old. But yeah, you're talking Texas though. And here's the thing, when there's another layer to it where Montana had their Montana law, it sounded like you were talking about something like similar, because I think other states, Arizona had one or has one.
Yeah, there's been several going around. Yeah.
The problem is that they say, in a nutshell, the Interstate Commerce Clause is how the NFA, the 1934, gets its teeth and is applied by the federal jackbones, right? So we're going to say if an item is made in our state and it never goes across the state line, then your laws don't apply, your teeth don't apply, your laws don't apply, nothing applies. this suppressor, which isn't against our state law now, is good to go as long as it doesn't bother any of your federal laws, right?
Right.
In a nutshell. But then Montana did that and it got struck down. Arizona has one, and a couple other states have them. And I don't know if what like
Well,
state shut down. Well, hold on. But the thing is, all the problem is that because these things exist, they say so let's say you want to make a suppressor in that state, that situation. Well, you can't be a federally licensed suppressor manufacturer because in there somewhere it says you can never do anything that would be against our rules. So that means you have to be a rogue, non-licensed suppressor manufacturer in a state, and you're going to make a suppressor. And that means you can't make guns or anything else. You can't be licensed by the government at all in a manufacturing capacity, because otherwise you'd be running into a weird legal situation. So now you're just you have to be some regular person who just makes a suppressor and says it can never leave the state. And that's where I think Kansas and some others have had actual laws, actual court cases now happening because of that. But the difference is, or what could be different is, when these states do, I forget the term now, but when like you have a river or a lake that you each share a side of, right? And you create a pact, I guess is what they're called. So you create a legal standing, which is kind of between federal and state law, because it's more than state law, because everybody's involved in this river or this shared resource, this lake or whatever it is that we share, maybe a forest that both states touch. So we've got this thing that's more than both of each of our state laws together, which means it's more than Maine or Vermont or anybody else, because it's more than Arizona and Texas. So that means it's more than anybody, right? But it's not as big as federal law. So when you get one of these pacts combined with fuck you NFA bullshit, interstate commerce is bullshit, where does that leave us? Like now we get a couple of states and they say, like you're just saying, like NFA reciprocity, more like NFA doesn't exist, and here's our NFA tunnel or whatever that we're going to call it. Again, tube saving the freedom. Mm-hmm. Call it a freedom tube. Hey, if we pass it through this freedom tube, it never touched international law. Like this is our freedom tube over here. Mm-hmm. And we make it large enough to fit a can or a revolver or like a receiver.
Heck yeah. So I pulled up real quick. One of them is called Made in Texas. The other one is called Suppressor Freedom. And both of them are similar concepts. What I did notice, and I alluded to this in the podcast, which is an interesting thing, is like these are fishing expeditions, right? Which I suspect is what's going on in a lot of those states that are proposing things like this, because both of them say gives a way to secure a court judgment on the constitutionality. And so by introducing these and potentially passing these, they can then get a court judgment, right? And then either the court says, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this," or the court says, "Oh, federal law supersedes," or this thing or that thing, and then you've got some intel, right, to go back to the drawing board and go, "Oh, okay, well, since we passed this, and we know this first of all, we know this passed, so it's easy to get through." But the court is saying that, they're kicking it back on these grounds. Well, we need to go back and tweak this language, and then the
like
court can't touch it.
Doesn't work, or this doesn't fit into that puzzle piece, but we still got it. We can. Well, that's sort of to do a positive version of what happened in Nevada when Bloomberg pushed through the broken anti-gun bullshit. It got through, but it was broken, so it couldn't be enforced.
Right.
But same kind of concept. You shove it through. If it's not perfect, you fix it and shove it through again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I call it a fishing expedition, but yeah. And that's what this seems to be. It's more of a play like that. Like, hey, we're gonna test the waters, right? It's like that 3-year-old that pushes their parents' buttons and try to see how far they can get away with it. It's kind of what it's like.
Well, even if I don't know, maybe it's just naive, but even if it isn't, why not assume it is or play it like it is, because it's still, what do you call, experience or useful.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Unless there's like what's the word? Like, the crying wolf thing. I guess that's my other issue, is that's something that's next level that nobody wants to bring up, is the potential of wearing people out. And I was bitching about that earlier before you showed up. I was moaning about how everything's an introduction. Everything is the welcome to this person, or let me introduce you to this person. and drives me nuts. I've bitched about it more than once already for years. That whenever you get past the like polite introductions to each other and start talking about what we're here to talk about, and then figuring out, oh, you're a puzzle piece that's missing this, and I've got a puzzle piece that does have this, or I know we're 9 puzzle pieces with that, and then maybe it turns out that, hey, crap, all of a sudden we're way stronger together, and we actually help each other out. And if we're doing all this and riding shotgun with Charlie, but then it facilitates, and now Charlie becomes the conduit that allows another thing to happen, and then you got Charlie driving around Tony to different, you know what I'm saying? And then like we never even knew this stuff could happen if we were all
right.
in that situation.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, that is interesting to think of it as a either a learning, I don't want to call it like a building block or a stepping stone or whatever it's called, so that the same thing with removing the NFA. People would go, oh, if it's not a sure thing, why bother? Why should we put our effort into it?
Right.
But I guess I was saying, like, Crying Wolf, like how many things, I forget who it was, like Walt and his one troll friend. No, not his troll friend. Sorry. The actual decent friend of Walt was like, oh, you guys got to care about, I forget the one now that they told me to care about. It's the one where the Fourth Amendment one, potentially, where they're going to allow, or they're basically the police are going to bust into each of your houses and steal your guns. That one.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I hear you, dude. I'm not 2A anymore, so you're not going to get a rise out of me. But yeah, I hear you. It's frustrating when people don't care about every position. And unfortunately, once the antis figured that out, they now know that mechanism can be used against us. They can just throw stuff at us, and we're gonna become complicit through attrition. Like they're just gonna throw so much stuff at us that we don't have mechanisms. We don't have an infrastructure in place that's resilient. So we'll just wear down the activists. We're gonna wear down the people who are like, oh well, where'd the guys come that normally do this? I think this is what they used to do. And then they'll wear down the people that are like, I thought we never had to deal with this before. What do you mean this is a thing? And then they'll have effectively won at that point. That got doom and gloom. It's because Smeggy jumped in. Now you can talk us out of that path, Smeggy.
Oh, hey, how's it going, everybody? So I don't really know what you guys were talking about, so I don't know how to talk out of it.
I don't know where I went with that one. That one went dark and deep, but
so I like the Second Amendment. That's always cool. It's a good refresh.
You're allowed to like it for another 3 months, and then you're not allowed to have that position anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta turn the 2A off every now and then, right? Yeah.
We were talking, I think, about though I think what I started off saying was, how do we get people from like the Cry Wolf, or not the Cry Wolf, but how to get like, here's another thing that you actually have to be paying attention to, and it's not just Crying Wolf, or I don't think this is Crying Wolf, but can I add this to the mix? And because that's what I think what they're going to end up doing to us is just throw so much stuff at us that they allow us to just fester, chew ourselves up. I don't know what the words are, right?
Well, that certainly is their strategy, right? They introduce new stuff every single year, state level, national level, whatever. And it is tough to always be cranked up to 11. Like that big one, right? The 127. There's a lot of bad stuff in there, so we all get freaked out about it. But then they do some other stuff with, we'll just do some background checks and we'll do this, that, and you're not thinking about it because everyone's all ranting and raving about 127, which is bad. But also, if it's not going to pass, then you're wasting your energy fighting it. And I guess I don't know. I don't have an answer to that of really to know what to focus on and what not to. I just try and pay attention to everything.
I've got an answer, but it's not going to, I don't know the solution. But I think have you seen I think it's Seven Samurai. Is it Seven Samurai? Where is the Seven Samurai the one where the like little town that grows rice or whatever goes to the big town, and they start to hire a bunch of samurais, and then they bring them to their town to defend from the raiders?
Yeah, absolutely. Akira Kurosawa, my favorite director.
So Seven Samurais is basically a bunch of individuals who hadn't worked together but are aware of operating. They understand how to deal with raiders, right, in different ways and different experience levels, have to come together on the premise of, you know, doing good for this community, not for profit. They're basically Ronin. They're people with honor who have skills but aren't really doing anything at the moment, so are willing to help out this community that asks for assistance. And they come together and they attempt to teach the community or whatever. And that's the thing. How do you keep everybody at an 11? I don't know. I think the answer is that you get a couple of people to teach the masses and then use different strategies to both encourage and then prod and then coerce and then force, you know, the different things that are necessary at different times based on circumstances and all the other variables. But, you know, be willing and have people that are able to do that and then get practice at it. So I think the answer is, how do you deal with like the 127 is you get used. And if everybody's seen this movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't, think about one samurai guy, one capable warrior attempting to teach a bunch of, let's say, 10 farmers or 20 farmers, you know, something, maybe how to drill, how to walk around, or how to, you know, to repel borders, or how to stop people from coming over a bridge, whatever they would have done in a samurai movie to, you know, stop a bunch of people on horseback with swords and sticks from coming in and stealing their rice, right? So you get a bunch of people who are being, you know, have a self-interest but aren't that able, or, you know, they're definitely not experienced, and you've got a couple of experienced people who are interested but not capable necessarily of leading them, and then it's just a really, really good movie about that dynamic. And that's what we've got, is a bunch of individuals who have interest and some experience, and then we got a bunch of people who are fairly competent and interested occasionally, but most of the time they need to be encouraged or prodded or forced or tricked into doing stuff that's for their own good. And that's the answer, is that when 127 happens, we all need to figure out that it's a thing, and then a couple of us need to run over there and do our thing, and then a whole shit ton of other people need to flock over, the townspeople need to flock over and either repel borders and get experience and success and a victory, lose and get experience and learn and take a bunch of bruises and all the experience that comes with it, or 99% of the time probably do nothing, run over there to do something but then need to do nothing, and then get the experience and the understanding of like, oh, that happens a lot, you know, that happens often. Maybe that's what parades are for originally, but you know, that to get the idea that like we just have to get in the practice of when they throw 127 at us, we got to get up and get upset, not because it's the end of the world, but because they require that to be taught. The antis require that to be taught, that we're not screwing around. And how do we teach our people that, look, you got to get up and get ready to fight, and sometimes we're going to be fighting and sometimes we ain't, but we got to get up and ready to fight every time it comes. Otherwise, our children are going to be different than us, because they, you know, will have worn out and will have been run under, and we won't be farmers anymore. We'll just be the few people that run around eating onions instead of rice because the raiders took all the rice. That's a whole bunch of analogies, but I think that's the answer, is how do we do it? We just got to get a whole bunch of people to be willing all the time. I don't know how they actually do that, but I think that's how we do it.
Where would you like to see that force mobilized? Like, what places would the energy of that brute force be most effective in your estimation?
You're asking Clover? It's a good question for Clover.
No, I was asking you.
I don't know. I haven't seen it ever actually happen. If it was like, oh, you know what? When we have the people that run horses, you know, they are able to do this. And when we have the people that are, you know, sewers and weavers, you know, they're able, their skill sets are able to do this effectively. And when we have the, you know, the farmers that grow rice do this, and when we have the farmers that grow corn do that, we don't have any of that. We have a bunch of people who should be leaders who are introducing themselves to each other fucking constantly. And then a bunch of people who are farm people that want to fight and probably have successfully. And probably we are the result of a bunch of people who just get up, quietly fight, and then go back to sleep, who are just super competent and do it, but don't make a big thing about it. And then therefore they actually hurt us because they don't help, you know, no one helps them and no one learns from it. And they just successfully solve things here and there. And we're all reaping the rewards of that in some way or another, but maybe I'm going all over the place with that answer. But I don't know. Like I say, I just don't know what our resources are to give you any kind of. Do you guys know? Well, I mean, in this using this analogy, do we have? Can you apply this to anything we got? If you've even seen that movie, I don't even know how many people have seen this movie. Mr. Knives
No,
Out lives that movie.
Absolutely, I have. And if they haven't seen The Seventh Samurai, that film is the basis for The Magnificent Seven. So the mobilization of a team, it's firearms related, is present in both. And I think that Magnificent Seven was actually remade at one point too, and I can't recommend it over the original. So what organizations beyond the NRA would be potential candidates for a payoff if their membership blooms? Where could we send people besides the NRA?
I always recommend the FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition. I think they do a lot of good work. They're not, as mainstream as like NRA or even Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation. Those are the ones a lot of people know about. But I think the trick with that is all of those organizations too. Maybe each one of those are the samurai or whatever, right? Because some of them are much better at winning court cases at the small level. Others of them are great at, lobbying against bills or getting stuff passed or whatever. But we need all of those aspects if we're going to win completely. And you can get tripped up if you start focusing on just one thing or another. But
Yeah, you're
like I said, I
absolutely
always
right.
recommend FPC. They're great at the information too. I check their website all the time for action items or whatever. It's take action or something, whatever. They have one button. You click on the thing and it tells you what's going on, and then gives you a little form letter to write, which I always read and go, okay, that's a decent template, and then I write my own using some of the stuff that they say.
Absolutely, and you bring up several really good points there. I am a part, or a member, I should say, and I think that Craig does an excellent job on Instagram in particular. Maybe 4 or more posts from that account a day, and they're all worthwhile in some regard. So yeah, I think Firearms Policy Coalition is a great place.
So
To
they're
send
an
people.
organization, like a true organization. They're not like 2 or 3 people or something trying to do too many things so they like cycle through their tasks or whatever. They're like a bunch of different people and they bring people on board to accomplish stuff, is from what I can understand. So, from what I can see.
Okay.
So it's like they've got, if they want to do, well, they have somebody doing their Instagram, period. I don't know who it is, but somebody does it. But then what you're talking about, I think, is when they've got at least 2 different lawyers, right? The one guy and the other guy, or is there 3? I think there's 3 now. So they've got 3 lawyers, and the one guy's in Florida doing things with the Fudbusters channel, right? And that guy's got a beard. Does the other guy have a beard? They probably all have beards. And then the other guy, I think, is in California, and he does the shorter videos that are California-ish based usually. And I don't know if that's the one Walt was raging about a minute ago or not. And then they got a third guy that's an attorney, and I've seen him because he says I'm the third attorney that you never hear or whatever. I've seen a video from him recently, and I don't know if that was also California based or if he's always going to be California based. But so they've got at least those 3. Then Craig, who's Deleuze, who's been with them since the beginning, I think, and he does a bunch in California. So anyway, I don't want to dismiss what you just said because I agree. I'm just saying they don't accomplish it by being superhuman. They'd have a bunch of people, and I think that's kudos to them because they're not trying to be like, oh, everything's got to go through this guy, or like it's this guy's thing, so he has to approve everything, or this lady has got to say it's mixes with the overall theme of the blah blah blah. None of that shit is, from what I can tell, or if it is, it's happening efficiently or effectively, right? I don't know. Do you guys got a different spin on it?
Absolutely, and I didn't mean to give anybody else short shrift, so I stand corrected on that. Any other organizations that would benefit, not just benefit, but bloom with that brute force?
I don't know what you're asking. I don't think any of the other organizations do that, do they? Gun Owners America is all over the place. I can't tell who's running it or what. And then Second Amendment Foundation, it's all Allen. So we've got 3 different models. And then NRA is weird. I don't know what NRA is. NRA is like a committee, a bunch of people that are executives, and then they task it all to an advertising thing that's now has issues and they're at odds with. So it's been, I don't know what, does anybody even monitor what NRA is doing? They're probably getting the benefit of all of this because no one's even scrutinizing what they're doing anymore. So I think FPC is unique, but I don't know if they're intentionally unique or if it's circumstance.
See, I will say something. This is kind of semi-related, but it was kind of interesting though. It was the first time I actually got a call from the NRA looking to raise money. And, the lady starts off of, well, there's this bill introduced, blah, blah, blah. And I just like cut her off. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. You're talking about 127, right? She's like, oh, yeah, actually, yep, 127. Anyways, like, we could really use your money. And I don't know how much. I'm sure she's just paid to, collect money or whatever. But I sorry about that. I get a couple texts. I don't know if you guys can hear that. And I guess my point is, I don't know how much like those types of people report back to the actual NRA, but I just straight up told her, because I actually recently renewed my NRA. I've been on the fence on fix it from within side or just screw it, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I'll give them one more year. It's only whatever, $20. Okay, fine. And I kind of like their magazine. So cool. I got something to read. But I told her, I'm like, just because I renewed, I don't really like LaPierre and all that stuff. And I'd much rather give my money to FPC to fight against this than them. So I don't know if that's going to help or not, but you would think if like every single person they call, like, hey, the NRA needs your money. And they're like, we're not giving you money. You guys suck, blah, blah, blah. It's got to at least get back. Maybe they will change from the inside. Because I do think they do still some good. They're just bloated bureaucracy. It's the same kind of stuff that a lot of us don't like about the government. They have the same thing. They have their little committees and the in-groups, and they fight with each other and who's trying to get more money from the other people and blah, blah, blah. And that's the part of it I don't like. So,
Yeah,
anyways, little side chat.
No, you make another good point, man. Absolutely. And by asking if there was somebody beyond the NRA, I didn't really mean to detract from them. I just feel like their membership is already so large and that they move so slowly because of that. So, maybe it's the support people behind FPC that are doing that job on Instagram that are, a fresher voice. Maybe that can help them to juke move faster in response to things. And I certainly think to that end, to bring in another organization, the Second Amendment Foundation, that it seems like last year is extending into this year as being some growing pains. And
Hold on. Can you hear this?
Mr. Knives, I got a wrench. I got the power.
No. I guess it's not coming up on microphone. My puppy's having a puppy nightmare, so I'm blaming this on Pelosi or Feinstein. So I'm going to go deal with the puppy nightmare, wake her up and give her a belly rubbing, and y'all keep the check going.
Oh, absolutely, man. Scratch for me too. So maybe the FPC is the org that's going to be able to do those juke moves. And, I wouldn't necessarily mind if the membership that feels strongly about the NRA not doing the job that the membership wants, maybe it's time for some people to take that money where their mouths are to some of these other organizations. And Second Amendment Foundation is growing their Action Network. Theirs is not really, it's not full steam yet. It's not anywhere close. Lots of us have logged in and signed up, and there were dead ends that began, but they're remediating that. So trying to find a way to bloom the ranks there is something that I'm going to keep my ears and eyes open for. One of the things that occurred to me immediately was, what if there was a point of sale display for someone other than the NRA? Because all of us have been to our LGS, to gun stores anywhere. The NRA logo is in the window, and I seriously doubt, maybe Clover could fill us in if you don't know, Smeg, that they probably don't have a non-compete clause with other organizations. I mean, I could just be naive as hell on this, but if they do not, or if it's under the purview of an independent store, maybe that would be a way for them to spread. I think I'll shoot off a couple of emails to those organizations today and prop that, unless I need some stop signs thrown up. What do you think?
Are you guys throwing in? I got back in the middle of that.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I don't guess I quite got the premise there.
Are you saying that you think gun shops are somehow beholden to the NRA?
No, not at all. I'm just saying that when you go into gun shops, it's not uncommon to see NRA stickers in the window or support the NRA flyers, that kind of stuff. So my suggestion there was perhaps to skin off some of that awareness and contribution could be done as a point of sale display.
Hold on. So I know that it's cool to hate the NRA and everything. It's like trendy or something, and nobody puts any thought into what, just because it's cool to dish what's old, right? And that's, whatever. I don't know why, but whatever. So this is something that I'm sure Clover has got to, I don't know if he's biting his lip like I do when I hear people. You don't have to bite your lip when you're just listening to people say this, but I hear this on channel chats that I'm not a part of. So first off, okay, the NRA didn't go, you know what we're going to do is we're going to lock down all stuff in the shooting industry and the gun community. In 1903,
right,
just talking about the Militia Act said, hey, everybody sucks at shooting. Why don't we do something about it? And the country said, yeah, let's do something about it. So the NRA was like, well, we already exist, so we'll blah, blah, blah. And they started doing stuff. And then all these state level organizations, and I'm pretty sure the first Olympics right around then, which is part of the stuff I'm doing, had a whole bunch of guns in it, because as Clover will tell you, it's the number one sport in the world, right? They do everything they can to make it seem like it ain't. But anyway, shooting was a big deal for a number of years, and then it wasn't. So the NRA was, I don't know, I'm sure there's people in the NRA that have always been like, hey, we're part of the NRA and we're the biggest thing, and I'm part of the biggest thing, and let's make that be forever. But I think there's also a level of no one came up and said, hey, let us take a portion of your work, NRA. I mean, am I wrong? Like, no one ever said, like, oh, we'll be the other NRA, or we'll do half the stuff that the NRA can't do good.
Correct.
Until 1968, and they made a bunch of shitty laws. And then they said, hey, you know what? The NRA should do both, right? We should do both safety and other stuff. And then they said, no, we shouldn't. And they said, yeah, we should. And then they said, okay, we'll do this. We'll do both, and we'll call half of it the ILA. And then they had the NRA. And until until the Appleseed, I'm not aware of anybody at any kind of national level. Maybe there's 4-H, and then there's not even. 4-H didn't make their own shooting thing. Because the NRA existed, they supplemented the NRA. They said, oh, the NRA's is good, and we're going to add to it over here, and we're going to bring it to here. It's what Scouts did and everybody else. Nobody was like, hey, you know what? Let's chop down the trunk of the tree and grow a whole other tree because ours needs slightly different. They said, hey, let's make a branch of the tree. And the NRA was like, sure, here you go. Here's some resources. And then in the age of internet and phones and everybody can do anything and 3D printing and everything's cool and nothing should be old and everything should be brand new and everything can be started right today and everybody did everything wrong before. It's like, oh, let's do some different kind of training options. I mean, for crying out loud, there wasn't even personal training till Gunsight. Am I wrong? Until there was two trainers that traveled, and then Gunsight happened. In what the hell? Let's scroll down a little bit here, find out when Gunsight happened. But until Gunsight happened, there wasn't even such a thing as training, except for the NRA. So this concept that the NRA went around and did something to force blah blah and create this situation, it's more like nobody did shit and let the NRA did it all until 15 minutes ago when everybody decided to start making. Gunsight starts in 1976, so Camp Perry is in 1906, and I might have missed something in that 70 years, but I'm pretty sure nothing exactly listed in 70 years, and this was 40 years ago. So in that 40 years, it takes you until you get to the 80s and 90s, before the schools start to actually exist, and besides Gunsight, you know, that there's actually training locations, and these are training locations that are teaching our operators, our cops, and interested individuals. This isn't like, hey, we're challenging the NRA for a training curriculum, until maybe you get to, well, I don't have Pincus on here, but whenever Pincus starts in the 90s, the late 90s, and then it takes him a minute before he thinks he's good enough to be competing with NRA, or he sees holes in what NRA is doing. And then sure, when you get to the 2000s and there's a whole bunch of CCW states where people can actually do something with training besides cosplay, like, then you get a shit ton of instructors, and then you start getting people coming home from wars who have actual experience, and they add to the mix. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, there's more than one training academy. How are we going to promote ourselves? Well, let's challenge the NRA. Let's challenge the establishment. So this whole, like, let's hate the NRA because they've dominated training is like going, hey, let's dominate milk for being a breakfast drink. Like, milk didn't do nothing. It was just sitting there and being a breakfast drink, and nobody challenged it, right? I don't know if that's the best analogy, but I just don't get the, you know, like, the NRA has a thing in gun shops because there's nothing else to put a sticker of until what, USCCA that started like 15 minutes ago. And FPC doesn't send out stickers. So it's not, you don't see NRA stickers because the gun shop is naive or stupid or myopic. It's because there's no other freaking choice. And often the NRA is like sponsoring 4-H, and they're sponsoring the ranges, and they're sponsoring the training, and they're sponsoring the hunters, and they're sponsoring the cleanups. So by you give into the NRA, you're funneling into all that. And then you're paying for his suits also, which, you know, I'm not justifying that.
Yeah, and
Right.
a lot of people.
And I want you to understand that, you know, I was speaking mostly to those who are disaffected right now. You know, like Artak in the chat has got some limitations that he sees in the NRA, and he sees, you know, his money and energy going better somewhere else. So, you know, like I said, I don't mind if it strips off some of what the NRA gets, but I'm not asking for, you know, I'm not saying stand up and walk out. But certainly someone in the membership, or some ones in the membership, do need to stand up.
Don't get defensive. You're the
No,
one
not at all.
saying stuff, and that gives me the chance to talk about stuff that I had to listen to on other shows where they are satisfied with, like, oh yeah, let's just leave the NRA. Like, oh look, we've accomplished something. We've walked away from the NRA. Look, we got people together on Discord and decided to do nothing, which we're calling action, and it does have consequences. But anyway, so the concept that the whatever the NRA is like, you know, that there's going to be some benefit by it collapsing, or that, you know, it's had some stranglehold on stuff. I don't know. I hear that a lot, and it goes unchallenged because, unfortunately, anybody who's in competition with the NRA with anything, you know, for anything, for you know, for focus, for audience, for profit, for attention, for anything, right, is going to be happy with the NRA trashing. Anybody who's anti wants the NRA to trash. I don't know. Anybody who's got some new concept that the NRA is overshadowing, it's sad. I don't know. Well, there's nothing to do. It's just, you know, it's slowly watching what a redwood just not get water. Everybody's thrilled to, you know, be happy with the water that had been going to it, and no one's experienced a world without that tree there. And, you know, not only will we not have the tree, but we'll realize that it takes 100-something years to grow a tree like that.
So
well, I do appreciate the elucidation there, and I hope that there's enough water to go around. No, man, I just wanted to finish up with G.
Oh, well, I've tried to talk several times. I'm like, what in the world's going on?
I feel like I should interrupt you just for tradition.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I get it. No, what I was going to say, at the end of the day, take your money where you take your money, right? But don't use reasoning that makes any sense, or I don't know how to put this. because I don't want to say stupid remarks or stupid reasons or ignorance, because I don't want to make anybody feel bad because they don't know what they don't know.
No,
or
because it's
whatever.
more like
You
it's
know?
not like you can't get mad at people when they just don't think it through, right? It's like
Yeah,
a knee-jerk
right.
reaction almost,
Yeah,
except it's
no.
happening in slow motion.
Yeah. So the most common thing is I don't give money to the NRA because they don't do anything legislatively. And I'm like, okay, well, or I canceled my membership because they don't do anything legislatively. Well, your membership money doesn't go towards those efforts. So everybody could relinquish their membership right now as far as the NRA. And the things that they're doing legislatively, what little they do, obviously, behind the scenes and everything else, they can still do because that's done through benefactors, through those phone calls Smeggy was talking about, those mechanisms, right? By not becoming a member, you achieve a couple of things. First of all, you lower the ranks, right? Which, I mean, that could signal the anti-gunners that the NRA is weakening. That could signal people that the NRA is not the bastion of hope that everybody thinks it was. There's a lot of connotation, a lot of things that could happen from that membership lowering from you dropping your membership. But you thinking that your $20, $30 a year as a member is going to roll back or change the NRA legislatively speaking is wrong. Now, one issue that's went on for years is the struggle within the NRA where and again, it's part of the controversy when we talk about the suits and we talk about the trips and we talk about financial malfeasance, whatever it is, right? And if you've ever been in the shooting sports game, youth shooting sports game, organizational game where you've relied on their grants and some of their other things, you know this to be true. You've dealt with it firsthand, that there are elements of the NRA. The NRA is not one big building, everybody in lockstep. There's many moving parts and pieces depending on, whether it's range development, whether it's competition, whether it's youth safety, whether it's overall safety, outreach, legislative issues, state level legislative issues even, right? And so there's this shifting of funds and money that has went on that has actually robbed what I believe is the foundational things of the NRA, which is what G spoke about, right? Is proficiency, safety, outreach, all of these things that we require in society. So by removing your membership and damaging the NRA, the core NRA, right? The legislative stuff to me is not the core. It's not the history of the NRA. As G said, it's fairly new. But by removing all of that, and potentially damaging the core that has had an effect in society for over a freaking 100 years at this point, and moving forward, not continuing to have that in society because you're looking at the legislative things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you're not looking at the other day-to-day things that are going on in this country, in this world, and the positive changes in society that's being made by the, I don't want to say grassroots, but the ground level elements anyway of NRA with the instructors, the trainers, the volunteers, and a lot of the other people, that some of those resources, that membership dues affect, that extra contributions to specific projects and things affect, right? And what does the landscape of the United States look like? Step back and think about this without the NRA in existence ever. And what does the landscape look like if we lost it all today? All of that went away. All of the range development arms, all of the instructor arms, all of the safety and outreach arms, all of that. So when we're saying, oh, we need to get rid of the NRA, we need to bring it down, we're better off without it. Are we? Are we really? Look at all of that and everybody's got to make that decision for yourself. Again, I totally respect and understand the legislative side of things, but let's be honest about the entire makeup of the NRA.
And if you want to change it, go ahead, because that's the other problem is like you don't change it by just destroying it and then assuming you're going to somehow miraculously come up with something that took 100 years to develop and then fail into what it is today, if that's what you feel. But you change it by changing it, by creating a separate thing that's better, that everyone chooses in a free society, right? Or you change it by being a part of it and eroding from the inside the whatever barriers that were created to stop the internal mechanisms, and or some other option that I'm not aware of. But yeah, you don't get to do nothing and then watch it burn and then get to go, oh yeah, see, that's what we wanted. At least I don't think so. At least that, well, I guess anybody can do that, but what do you gain by that? When you do any of those other things, when you build something that's better, when you build an alternative that solves all the problems that the first had, like then you've accomplished something. You've now done something that has, that exists. Plus you've got the experience on how you did that. Plus you did it in front of everybody. You set an example, right? To do nothing, that's the opposite of all of that. Basically, to just say, well, because someone told me to, and I haven't done any research, and it sounds easy to get on the train to hate, right? And I'm frustrated because other people are being mean to us, and I want to hate somebody, so I'm going to hate this guy for obvious infractions of being a dumbass, right? Then, yeah, and if you don't have anybody ever focusing on a diminished future because of a lack of resource or a lack of foundational element of the community, silly.
Well, what gets me is their hate or whatever is often not placed in the right space. They're not hating on this guy, they're hating on his wife. They think they're hating on that guy, but in reality they're hating on the guy's wife, which has nothing to do with it.
Are you talking about something specific, or just using like an analogy?
I'm just using an analogy when we're talking about the ILA and
I'm like, what? Okay.
when we're talking about the ILA and historically the historically the NRA, right? When we're talking about the outreach, the training, the safety, the awareness, the cultural, societal, whatever side of NRA. And
well, that's the problem.
Like I said, people are hating on one, but then they blame the entire household. In other words, because I hate this particular guy, I hate his wife, his daughter, his son,
I gotcha. Yeah,
everybody in the household.
Adjacent to, but yeah,
right,
it's like the whole town, yeah. And that's the problem, is that the people that hate a facet or some element of it are willing to let the whole thing be hated, which is just stupid. It's just plain, like, how much would Bloomberg have to pay to manipulate this situation? Like, could he have? If we were sitting around a couple of years ago, before all the weirdness of everybody getting like frustrated in general about things, and writing everything off as to, outside of our control, that the circumstances are out to get us, and so we can just sit here and mock the world or whatever. Before all that, when everybody still had like just the normal concerns of, is it worth individual effort when it seems like things require large efforts to make big changes, right? We had that constant like, hey, is it worth putting effort, time, resource, into a movement like removing the NFA or Hearing Protection Act or any of the other things. When we had those kind of conversations, right? What would if we would have said this conversation, I don't know, in a Mr. Knives lobby, in 2017, 18, I think that would have all worked with timeline. And I would have said something like, hey, what would Bloomberg have to do to get it to where all gun owners hated the NRA, to where, they're either working against it, like setting up, like working their fingers to say things against them, writing articles. Like, I'm sure if you went to a gun show or a big enough gathering of gun people and said, like, I hate the NRA, somebody'd be like, I hate it too, or whatever. He started some chant against the NRA. People would hate it that much that, they'd like, how would Bloomberg have even created such a situation? Like, I think he would have looked at me like I'm crazy. And yet here we are. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, a certain amount is just where the chips fall, I guess, and that the elements inside the NRA unfortunately brought upon themselves, in a way.
They steered the boat poorly, and
right.
What is it? Right. They're getting the consequences of
their they're not without blame. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
that the people within the NRA are not without blame, but the NRA is as an organization, as the history that, again, not the ILA, not the legislature, is not to blame for anything that's gone on or happening.
Oh yeah, well that's a whole nother thing, and I guess I'm kind of in parallel with you, but I haven't been tracking with exactly what you're saying. But yeah, exactly. The half the problems that people have with quote unquote NRA are ILA issues, and whether or not the ILA can be fixed or is. And the thing is, it's not as though it's as black and white as, oh no, here you're just realigning your anger in the wrong place, just focus it over here, and now we're all fixed, right? It's
Right.
not that easy either, because stupid ILA is actually just a weird left hand appendage of it, like a fairly useful thing that kind of, it was broken a few times so it works, but you can't put too much effort on it or too much force on it, right? Like, it has the potential, but I don't think anybody maybe here. How about this? I just wondered this as I was saying. Is the reason the ILA as impotent, I think, as it is, at least from what we would like to see as a strong, is it in the state that it's in because it's not possible to have one entity? Am I disconnecting? Is it possible to have one? Is it not possible to have one entity that can do all the different facets that we need? Like, maybe it's because we need a bunch of different weapons to accomplish what we need, that the NRA was doomed from the beginning, or the ILA at least was doomed from the beginning.
I believe so.
Yeah, and they didn't know that. It's not like in '68 they said, "Oh, you know what? Let's screw everybody in the 2000s because after the internet, this will really fuck them up."
Well, yeah. I believe so. I believe that they would have been much better off branching off some kind of an offshoot. And for the most part, it is. A lot of people don't realize that, but there's a lot of separation between the ILA and the NRA as far as the organizational structure of things. So I don't know if that happened immediately in '68 or if that was a progression over time, or how all of that happened. I don't know why. I don't know if it was tax avoidance, better for raising money, whatever the case may be. But also know that's why when you start talking about memberships and you start talking about some of these other things, that flow of funds is not supposed to be going, coming into the NRA, quote unquote, and funneling straight over to the ILA. But the ILA too. The other thing is you can't discount the clout, the power, the recognition, the connections, some of the other things, right? So if that completely goes away, what does that do with, where's that leave all that stuff? You see what I'm saying?
No, here's the thing though. I hear what you're saying. Here's the problem though, and I can already hear because I hang around with way too many of the young folks than you do, I think. As soon as you're saying that, they're saying, who cares? We're ready for that. Like, they didn't accomplish it. They had their chance, done. Like, they're not satisfied with, in other words, to sum it up, what I think they're going to hear your position as is, because it's scary to not have the NRA, we need to have the NRA. I know that might not be exactly what you're saying, but I fear that's how they're going to hear it, that because it's scary without them, we've never seen it without them, we got to keep them around. And that's not what you're saying, but if that's what they're hearing, right? Because it's all about what they're hearing, then they're saying, well, then fuck the NRA, right? But that's not necessarily, that's why I'm trying to say that's not the answer. The answer is have something that replaces what Clover's concerned about. And we don't care if the NRA is the result, because we're not trying to say, Clover's not saying, and that's the problem, is that you're not saying that. I'm just trying to say if that's how they're hearing it. But if their concern is that Clover's an idiot, because that position is an idiot because it needs the NRA to exist simply because they're afraid, well, then you don't challenge that old guy's fear by saying, I'm willing to be scared or whatever. Like, who cares what you're willing to, idiot youngin who doesn't know shit and is willing to do? You're not afraid of anything because you don't know anything yet, right? Like, that doesn't work as an argument to old people. I can tell you this because I'm old, right? Like, what needs to happen is you got to say, look, your old ass broken shit don't work, old man. Here's what will work. Here's what has worked. Here's what is working. And now you can change an old man's mind to say, yeah, the NRA is broken. It don't work. But here's an option. Or better yet, here's 4 options, old man. And this one works. That one kind of works. And we really think this one could work with your help. And
Well,
and
it's like,
different
yeah, it's like,
changes, right?
so it's like me having, I guess what I'm saying, it's like I've got my old truck, right? And so it'll run highway speed down the road, not a problem. I'm not concerned with comfort necessarily. It'll haul stuff, that's cool, you know. And so what I'm saying is that I don't, and I get you. You weren't coming after me, and so this gives me an opportunity to maybe back up a little bit and try to explain it a little better. It's like I'm not necessarily concerned with the name of said organization, but the resources that have been built, the network connections, all the things that have been cultivated
The
over
shade,
time are
the shade-
assets. They're assets to that cause, right?
yeah, the
So
shade that we thrive in is because of that. So if you're going to chop it down, understand we need shade from something. Like, where are we getting that shade from without you?
yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah, I like that. It's like you haven't grown your replacement tree first, so when we cut this one down, we've got a place to get under the shade, right?
That's what I was going for. But yeah, maybe it's like, where are we going to get these apples from? You're saying that this tree ain't great and you don't like eating apples anyway, but until you grow a pear tree or an apple tree or something else, or an orange tree or something else, or come up with a tomato plant or something else, right? Then all you're doing is eating on a tomato, on an apple tree, but you ain't coming up with an alternative. Maybe that's the summary of what we're trying to say.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'm just saying there's assets above and beyond and besides the organization itself. There's assets that if that organization goes away, we lose all of those assets. Now,
Infrastructure.
as somebody, infrastructure as well. I mean, like I said, friendships, networking contacts, clout, that stuff is not necessarily infrastructure, right?
Well, some of it, like
But it's important
a
stuff.
lobbyist is still going to have a job. They still have their contacts. He's probably not going to go work for Bloomberg, so he'll work for FPC or whoever, or she'll work
Right.
for whoever. But yeah, it's not all that. It's when you get rid of the NRA show, and now that thing that 4 or 5 or 50 or 100 different entities, manufacturers, industry, community, people would use to meet, now that's not there. So then do they all switch? Well, they can't all switch to this other one because there's not a replacement that's identical. So now some of them are going to prioritize industry reps. They got to go here for that show. Some of them are going to prioritize having fun. They're going to go there for that show. And you no longer have that 6 people meeting together. Is that an immediate cause for the death of the community? Who knows? But is it a cause for growth? You can't tell us it is. So that's another problem, is that you remove infrastructure that has tradition to it for the sake of losing tradition. Fuck, I'll lose so many traditions. You don't even want us to get close to having a competition on getting rid of traditions with me because I can win. But this is not a tradition you just remove. Number one, because Bloomberg is desperately trying to remove it. That's got to give you a clue that it's not a tradition you just casually remove, but it's a super interesting, important tradition.
Yeah.
Not the NRA. All the stuff we're trying to say, the NRA.
And that has some parallels, I think, to SHOT Show, right? So we didn't have SHOT Show 2021, and we see all this and continue to. I go, next week, and we see all of these little breakouts and things, right? None of these breakouts even come close to what SHOT Show has historically been able to do, right? And granted, it's right out of the gate. It's a unique time that everything happened. Certain regulations and restrictions and other things are in play. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces to it. I be the first to admit that, but it's not like SHOT Show didn't happen and people didn't try to do other things, but nobody come even remotely close to actually what SHOT Show is capable of doing, right? So it's that same type of thing when we talk about, okay, we're going to take on, do other things, fill the shoes of ILA or fill the shoes of NRA or whatever. It's like, do you realize how massive it is? And it got to that way over time. It wasn't just a bunch of people that got together with great ideas and bam, it was automatically this big, huge behemoth that was able to get things done. And talking more from the NRA side, again, with culture and society than with legislation, because they've done very little.
Seriously, let's see, I can go up to here. So SHOT Show's been going on since 1979. Started out with 5,000. I don't know if you can see this on Zoom. It started out with 5,000. It's 6,000 attendees. And throughout the years, it's grown to a max of 67,000 attendees in 2014. And now it's down to about 60,000. It's hovering, at 60,000 attendees. Went from 290 exhibitors at the first SHOT Show, and it got up to a grand total of 2,500 that a couple of years earlier in 2013 or in 2012. Anyhow, so just to give you the scale of SHOT Show or whatever, that came from my understanding, the SHOT Show when it was little was an attempt to have a national level show to compete with the multiple regional level shows. So POMA, NASW, something or other. Then there's a couple of different organizations that were regional media and industry. Basically what SHOT Show is NSSF, except regional, Southeast, Northwest, that kind of thing. So they had their own SHOT Shows, and because it was difficult for people to, like a knife company or whoever, a boot company or whatever, to show up for all these shows, more importantly, it was difficult for a store to show up at more than one of these shows ever. There was no way for a manufacturer to know that they were getting in front of all the stores. They could only ever get these regionals type of things. So the SHOT Show was, hey, let's see what happens if we do something regional. In 1979, I got to assume most people who are listening to this aren't even that old, right? Weren't even alive then. 1979 was different, right? We didn't have internet or what. So you get SHOT Show growing from 5,000 to 50,000, growing, 10 times in size, to 60,000 now. It's going to devolve, and as it devolves, it's not going to turn back into 4 regional shows or however many, 5 or 6 regional shows anymore, or whatever. It took until it would be interesting. I should probably go in here and color code this, because it wasn't until just when I started going to SHOT in like 2004 and 5 that it started to include police. And I didn't even know it because I was a dumbass experiencing the show for the first time. But as I was experiencing SHOT Show for the first time back in this era, SHOT Show was adding police to the whole thing. It had been a hunting show for all of this time. So at the same time I'm first experiencing SHOT Show, and digital cameras are first experiencing SHOT Show, SHOT Show is first experiencing anything at all besides hunting. So the press is different, the people attending different, and then think about what that meant. It wasn't like there wasn't military shows. Those military shows happened with just military. So when you've got military going to a military show, we don't have to mansplain this audience what that means. That's a different audience than what goes to SHOT Show. So when you take the chocolate and that peanut butter and mix it together, how did the world change since 2003 when started mixing the worlds of the industries of military and police? Did we start to see a blending? I mean, was that because of SHOT Show, or did the SHOT Show get huge? Did it grow from 20,000 to 60,000 in a couple of years because of that blending, right?
And my question, and you know the history on this more than me, so what does the growth rate and things look like? Because we talk a lot about SHOT moving around, especially with golf and other things, canceling this year, whatever. What does the growth rate and attendance look like with traveling years versus it's only been in Vegas? Is there any correlation that being in one location like that every single time helped actually grow it?
This is more, I literally just assembled this all. I'm putting it together, so I haven't had any time to absorb it. I'll send you a copy and you can answer that too, but I have no idea. Right. But it is here. So yeah, that's something that.
Well, what year they started Vegas only, right?
Oh, you can kind of see it on the thing because it turns into this. So yeah, right around here is when it stays. And it kind of started when I started going to SHOT is when it started to toggle. So it was in Florida, and then we went there, and then we started going as media, right? So we brought cameras in 2005, and at that point, it had already started to toggle between Nevada and Orlando. And then in 2007, it turns out when I did the math down here that Florida was 700,000 square feet. And Vegas Convention Center was only less than 600,000 square feet. So it had been bouncing from Vegas to Orlando, and then eventually went to Orlando. And this was hands down the most beautiful SHOT Show that's ever existed. 2009 SHOT Show in Orlando was amazing. It was a glass building with glass roof, glass skylights, SHOT Show in like being SHOT Show outside, except inside and air conditioned. It was awesome. Best SHOT Show just as far as the experience ever. It was 3 stories high. You could go up to the top and look down at the entire SHOT Show. It was just in one big room. It was amazing. They brought it back to Sands, which I've always hated because Sands is 700,000 square feet, which is quite a bit bigger than Vegas Convention Center where it came from. And since they didn't want to keep going to Florida because Florida sucks so bad, they kept going to Vegas. And then look, they just added the Caesar, which this year would have been the addition of the Caesar to bring it up to 850,000. So they were going to need to spread out into the Forum. So we were definitely only going to ever be at this place because there's no other. I mean, unless I haven't looked at convention centers, but we would definitely need a giant convention center to fit SHOT Show in anymore. So anyway, SHOT Show's getting to the point where it's huge. So that's a good question. But I was going to say, before you ask that question, I was going to say, I don't think it can devolve anymore. I think it devolves into 4 shows. I think it tries to evolve into TriggerCon and Florida and somebody's thing and, you know, a regional one or whatever. And with the internet and with some, I don't know what would happen. I can't see it devolving the way it came. It's not going to unzip, right? It's not going to fall back into its pieces. I don't know what would happen, but I don't think it's going to be, I just don't think it's going to be like, oh, there's SHOT Show and now it's USCCA, period. Like, I think it'll be a mess, I think is what I'm saying, for a while until everybody figures out what they like better or the next is.
Right.
So since we're talking about SHOT Show and you guys have both been regular attendees for some time, do you think, well, would both of you say that you prefer the in-person versus the virtual?
I do.
Right on. So is there some way for you guys to lobby that it returns to kind of strengthen even the possibility that they would want to, as an organization, go virtual? I mean, I'm sure that industry is communicating that message strongly.
I've been talking with for a whole other reason, not related to SHOT Show. I've been having conversations with the NSSL. As I said, that's why I was late to this show. And SHOT Show has come up. They've got no delusions, expectations, or anything else of taking it completely virtual and the big events not happening. They're not moving in any of those directions or even considering doing that. Now doing breakout things and stuff like that, that's all up for debate and talking and whatever. But yeah, getting rid of the show altogether or going straight virtual or anything like that. Yeah, no, that's not anything they're looking into. That from the talks I've had with them. I don't want to put words in their mouth or say I speak for them or anything.
It's not like you were talking to them about any of that anyway.
Right. I wasn't like, hey, I'm a reporter and what's your opinion on this? We were just having a conversation. And I didn't get the sense at all that it's like, oh, we're going to go straight virtual from now on. Screw all of this. No, they like the aspect of the big show. And more importantly, things that have come up in that conversation was the benefit to Vegas and the benefit to Nevada and how much Vegas enjoys them being there. And, like, not having it in 2021 wasn't an NSSF issue. Well, I mean, they had to make that decision, obviously, finally make that call. But, it wasn't their choice necessarily, and it certainly was not, from what I gather, the choice of Vegas. It was much higher level government BS that pushed them into canceling it. And that's why they waited so long, as they were trying to exhaust every opportunity and buy as much time as possible to see if political winds changed and other things where they could pull it off for 2021. I mean,
Good to hear. I'm encouraged by that.
so yeah, I didn't mean to throw it onto a SHOT Show conversation by drawing some of those parallels, but yeah, I to what you said, DJ. I mean, I'm really looking forward to getting out to Talladega next week. I mean, it's just for one day, 25, 30, maybe manufacturers, distributors, whatever you want to call it, companies. But And G-Web's dropped. That sucks. So hopefully he'll get back in a minute. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that FaceTime. I mean, there's virtual is great, and you probably have an idea. You've went to conventions and you've hung out with people, and you know what I'm talking about, DJ. But I mean, if you were planning on going to Tulsa, and I mean, it's a whole different thing. You and I chatting here, or even you folks are out there in the chat, and then when we actually are at an event, we get to hang out and a lot of other things. You know what I mean? So, now take that on a friendship level, just having conversation and hanging out and laughing and joking and having fun. Take that to a whole new, doing business. And I mean, as a content creator, there's a certain amount of business. So, being, interviews, making those contacts, trying to solicit sponsorships, product for review, whatever it might be, and that face to face, because that's a connection. I mean, even this affords a little bit, even though I'm not running a camera now. Sometimes I do, and obviously in my videos I have it. But you can kind of get a sense, and you can kind of build a personal relationship in a way online, and kind of, hey, I really like that guy's attitude and other things. But at the end of the day, we've still got many miles of fiber optic telephone line and other things that separate us, along with computer screens and keyboards and everything else. And so when you're in that same room, you're actually able to shake a hand. You're actually able to read somebody's body language. You can, I don't know, it just builds a much better, in my opinion. And maybe I'm old school and I'm fuddy duddy, and that's fine. There may be some young bucks out there. There's a lot of cool channels out there that are young guys coming up, like Cash EDC and some of the rest, that those guys aren't super comfortable. They're introverts or whatever, in a way. They're not super comfortable with that human contact and stuff like that. But I've been in retail, in the public eye, dealing with people for many years. It's just the way I prefer to do things. So and honestly, not just for the sake of not just for the sake of the channel or stuff like that, but to move this into more of a every second matters conversation. When we're talking Second Amendment and stuff like that, I think some of the most impactful conversations we can have are local, at the local water cooler, at the grocery store, at the gun shop, at the whatever. I think we have to be prepared, educated, and prepared to take that opportunity to talk to a locally. And I think that the same way with politics in general, that I talk about how it starts at the local level, 2A awareness and gun culture and everything else. The more we can be vocal and talk about that on a local level and deal with things there, I think the better off we are in a national perspective. And again, to bring it all back around to the NRA historically and what they've done for society and perception and everything else, they've played a key role over the last 100+ years in that local conversation and moving the ball forward. So G's back. Yay.
I don't know. I guess my internet's bad. And then what DJ's saying, his mic isn't working?
Yeah.
I'm limping along here.
He gizzarded himself, apparently.
What, gizzarding is a thing now?
Well, isn't that when you talk over somebody, or you mute yourself or mute somebody or whatever, is gizzard? I don't remember the nomenclature.
I don't know that one. I would think gizzarding is hosting a live conversation, very much in the tradition of the Mr. Knives out here, twice a week for like 4 hours at a time often. But anyway, I was at a bad internet. I think I was trying to say before that I don't even know if you probably went on from this SHOT Show thing, but I don't see SHOT Show going anywhere either, unless a bunch of people are able to put their money where their mouth is and actually accomplish an alternative that was way better, right? And would have done that last year or this year and just shine. And no one would want to go back to SHOT Show. So that it was like a ghost town in spite of their best efforts, because the better alternative, right, happened. And, I'd like to see that, but I don't know what it is, and I don't see anything on the horizon. So I think I heard what you were saying, that it's not going anywhere, and it's the circumstances will have to dictate whether or not or how fast it comes back or what.
Right.
But unless they change something to where like a portion of the country can assemble and have gatherings and events and stuff, and a portion can't, and somehow, you know, SHOT Show is like, we have to be in this portion of the country, and then they're like, you have an event there, and they're like, no, and we can't change our mind now. I mean, that's so many ifs, it's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. And you know, there's, you know, we can have this is the beautiful thing. So it's not that all of these little pop-up shows and different things that have happened because of the lack of SHOT Show 2021. We don't got to say, well, if SHOT Show 2022 comes back and then we're solid from here on out, that we can't also have those little events, right? So people got out, they tried something, they did those events. Why can't we have SHOT Show and all of these little events? Why can't we have both? I don't see anything wrong with that. And I think that
No.
that is a positive to have more events and more things, because how many times can people, maybe they can't spend an entire week at SHOT Show, maybe that, a smaller show caters more to their specific demographic as a company. Maybe it's closer and they're a smaller company, maybe, right? So I guess maybe in a sense that is a good thing with not having the SHOT Show 2021, is it got the wheels turning with people to try some new things that hopefully we see continue into the future.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. I don't disagree with you. I think that the SHOT has, well, I'm not going to repeat everything, but I think that
Right.
You're pretty much right that we need to have it. I don't know that you're saying have it, and we've always had things and not having SHOT Show this time. If it would, I guess maybe the way I'm trying to say it is this, that if SHOT Show would have taken a knee on its own without all the circumstances that made the entire world take a knee, it'd have been different than this circumstance. Because in this circumstance, it's not like SHOT Show did something wrong or like an earthquake happened and it just happened to screw with just SHOT Show. So that's the problem, is that sure, SHOT Show may or may not come back, or when it comes back, it may or may not be, in stride, or it may or may not come out victorious or something. But at the same time, it's not like anybody has the ability to then just overtake them because of their success or their betters. I mean, I guess, like I said, it is possible for someone to just come out of nowhere and be ultimately successful in the chaos, but it's unreasonable to think that's going to happen. So,
right. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is even other events, right? Now you've been to SHOT Show admittedly far more times than I, right? So maybe I'm not worn out on it, maybe whatever, but SHOT Show in that week is just amazing. It's exciting. It's its own thing, right? You kind of get it in your own, for me anyway.
The only people that don't feel that way are people that are dead inside and hate the industry. Because it is amazing. It is literally it is a not the flame. It is it is an experience of the flame that is our industry.
Right.
You don't get any other window to it besides that's as big.
Right. But to say that any other show, regional show, the fire thing, the POMA thing for next week, whatever it might be, doesn't have things to offer as well. I mean, look at Tulsa, for example. That is just it's the largest gun show in the world, but it's just a gun show, right? And the experiences there and hanging out there and doing things there are in its own right and in its own way super freaking amazing. Love the time spent, there at the Tulsa Wanamaker Tulsa Arms Show. Yeah. Love it, right? It's not SHOT Show. It's not anywhere close, but it's kind of its own thing. So, I guess what I'm getting at is it just shows that there's a place for breakout sessions and other things. There's definitely room in the industry, I think, for more things like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course. And well, yes. And okay, here's the thing too, then, I guess, because you're not saying anything. I can't disagree. There's nothing to add. Yes. So sure. Another thing would be neat to see. I've thought, well, you didn't get to go to the Red October, but you did get to go to other events at the Red October location and get an idea of what they, what they could do at that facility where Antares is at. Mm-hmm. So imagine, well, you've been to Antares, which is also, it takes up that whole facility. Now take Antares, remove it from SHOT Show week, put it there with the theme of AK-47s, and
Right.
it's almost the same thing, except that what they did is where the what do they call that thing? Like the restaurant bar place, so like the main place, like at the
Mhm.
center of the ranges and stuff.
Mhm.
That place had a big swap meet, so it was almost like a shot show, like a gun show, but it was more like a swap meet because there wasn't actually it wasn't really guns. It was more like, for AK guys, we care about things like grips and like accessories and crap
Sure.
to dress them up like dolls. So it was a bunch of parts kits and parts and crap. But it was like you could bring your own. You could bring like at a swap meet or like at a garage sale. What am I trying to think of? Like there's a thing that churches do where you just bring a box of stuff, you set it out, everybody assembles, and for the evening, everybody just goes around kind of flea marketing stuff. So it was that kind of thing, included with the manufacturers bringing out their stuff to demo on a range, and interesting events, and a competition was happening. So there was like all these things happening at the same time. I think that's the evolution or an evolution of what's going on, because you can then add 3D printing, some sort of a competition with build or design.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
can bring in rights, right? You can bring in awareness. So they didn't have any of that, but they could have if they would have known that the people would have tolerated it and then thirsty for it, or if they would have had people aware of the event, because it was only their first event. First in Vegas, it's the fourth event. But yeah, as we see these things mature, they're either going to be mature into waste of time, derivative, sell you more garbage crap, waste of time, suck off of our community, or they'll evolve into the next. So I think that, I guess what I'm saying is that, yes, what you said, but then because of what SHOT Show and everything else that's happening, and which is tech evolving. Let's not forget that we've got 3 different new robots on Mars that everyone's wants to not talk about. And we've got like hundreds of space, like private space launches. I can get, and Bob doesn't even know this, but I can get, what's that new Elon Musk internet? I just can't afford it, but I could get the internet.
Right.
They have it in Tucson already. So I can get space internet. And, we got all that kind of stuff happening all around us. So, as much difficulty and annoyance, as much difficulty and annoyance we have with, messing with our platforming and our blah, blah, blah. And I don't know where to get my news from and blah, blah, blah. We're creating potentials for way more new opportunities and stuff. So yeah, those events should evolve right along with all of our other tastes and abilities and right. And man, who knows what you've already got a printer and you're a FUD, for crying out loud. How are you going to deal with that? How do you justify that dichotomy or whatever that
I
is?
don't have one yet.
Oh, I thought you already had one in the
No. I'm not there yet. No, I'm about decided on the model, and I'm getting there.
I thought you
but,
had said something like it was already in the mail. I thought you had already gotten to that point.
No, I mean I've already made up my mind. I am going to purchase one, and at this point, I'm pretty much decided on what it's going to be. I'm just kind of monitoring sales, and I'm looking for I'm going to snag one at the absolute best price possible. I'm not in a hurry. You know what I mean? I have that luxury.
We know you're not in a hurry. So then, is it what knocked you over? Was that you could make shotguns with it, or that you could make shotgun husks with it?
Yes, all of the above. Yes.
I know you're going to 3D print. Like, now I can finally get my 12.5 gauge that I've always wanted. Just
Right.
a little bit more.
Right. Yeah.
Be 11.
Exactly.
It's
4-inch shells or something. That'll really get a duck.
No, but anyway, so I think that I don't know how we got into SHOT Show or whatever, talking about SHOT Show specifically, but then we kind of went off on that one. But whatever, I think the evolution of it is still yet to be determined, and we don't even know what it's going to be like seeing SHOT Show expand into, what is that, 150,000 square feet? So
Something like that.
quite a bit more. It looks huge. I mean, I guess when you look at the building and you look at the numbers, I guess they're being real generous with all those extra rooms that you really can't see in Sands, because they're saying Sands is 700,000 square feet. That must be including every like little room that like press room is in and all that kind of stuff, to make it that big, because the rooms themselves don't seem that big, because that new 150,000 square feet looks like it was about to add a third of the size to SHOT Show. And according to that, it would be more like a quarter, right?
All right.
But anyway, it's going to add a lot more and make us walk over there and create some weird, like, what's the word? Like leapfrog shuttle weirdness where nobody can. I mean, before people would have just been lazy, like, oh, I can't walk SHOT Show. Well, there was nothing stopping you from walking SHOT Show except you didn't feel like walking SHOT Show. Now, like, you could actually go. It's going to be impossible to walk SHOT Show because you got to go upstairs and downstairs, and then you got to walk across into a whole other building and potentially supplier showcase somewhere else, or supplier showcase on a specific day. So now you have to take time off the regular floor to walk to supplier showcase because it's an either or. So they're definitely getting to the size where you're not going to have one person walk all of SHOT anymore. Like, it's really, really, you can technically do it at this point, but it's, you know what I'm saying? So that's going to evolve. And what does that do to SHOT Show? Eventually, SHOT Show gets to where one person cannot see it all. Then, I mean, it's kind of like that now for a lot of people. Actually, it probably is like that for most normal people. What was that like? When did that happen? And what did that do? What ripple did that make? Because at one point, a person could walk into, like, you could walk into Wanamaker even as a reporter, if Wanamaker was SHOT Show, and go, oh, I'm going to see everything new at SHOT Show this year, right? And you could probably, especially if it was 4 days, you could totally see everything in Wanamaker in 4 days, right?
Right.
I think so, at least. And because SHOT Show is easily 4 times Wanamaker, I think, size-wise and stuff-wise. But anyway, whenever that happened, whenever that evolution happened, that must have done something to the coverage and done something to the TV shows and the magazines that could no longer, at least they couldn't send one person anymore. They'd have to send a couple or know that they're not seeing it all. And at that point, that had to be a thing too, where somebody couldn't see all of SHOT Show anymore. You know, I don't know who you'd talk to, an old writer, I guess. What was it like, old man, when you couldn't see all of SHOT Show anymore? And if they could remember back then,
Right.
you know, it might be amazing. So anyway, we're about to see that when SHOT Show becomes so big that it requires teams and crews, you know, and then, you know, what dynamic does that have? You haven't experienced it yet because you guys, although you've been to SHOT Show a bunch of times and you've done it a little bit differently because you've done it collaboratively. We did it for a while as a team. Like, in other words, I wasn't really paying anybody, but they were all coming under the gun websites and we went as a group. Like, we're all like, I'm telling you what you're going to get pictures of. If you don't have something in mind, then you're getting told because we have a lot of shit we need to get done, kind of, you know, that kind of thing. And when you've got groups of teams running around, right, like, that gets to be a whole different thing. And then, you know, a whole different, just all kinds of different ways, like just logistically and then competition wise, you know, when you're not going by yourself, now you can think, oh, I can see a lot more because we got 3 people showing up, but now there's 6 other teams of 3 people showing up. So where does that strategy happen? You know, where do you spend the most time? Do you send one person out to get in-depth interviews of some things, or, you know, so does that change the dynamic of SHOT? Because we've only experienced SHOT with amateur individuals experiencing it for years, eventually getting comfortable with it, getting relationships, and then becoming under the thumb. Like, we haven't experienced people like you teaming up with others or creating teams and experience in it for other reasons besides, you know, making a bunch of money. And can you, I think you can, because I've done it, you can experience SHOT and like Gear Report. I don't think Gear Report goes there with like a dividend and a expense report. I don't know the right words for business. I'm not good at business, but, you know, they don't go there looking at the bottom line and saying, you know, if SHOT Show doesn't bring us home $3,500, then we're not going to SHOT Show this year. Like, some people just go to SHOT Show to experience it. And what happens when that changes? Because SHOT Show, well, think about being somebody at SHOT Show. You're making your knife or your gun or your thing, and who comes up? For the years, it was gun shops, and then it was gun shops and guns and cops. Well, that's interesting. Now there's cops here, and I'm paying a lot of money, right? So maybe I should put some cop shit on the menu. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, the cops didn't show up, and I put all that cop shit on the menu, right? And it's like, fuck, now reporters are showing up. Okay, now what do I put something flashy here? I'll get a chick. I'll get a chick with no clothes on, and I'll give the cops a bunch of beer. Now I got it, right?
Right.
Oh, crap, now they took a bunch of pictures of my shit, and there's airsoft versions of it 5 minutes after SHOT Show's over. I can't do that. And, you know, it's like, come on, like, you can imagine how this stuff's been evolving. And, yeah, so now I guess what I'm getting at is that they've experienced it where, you know, it went pretty heavy from just people walking around minding their business, talking about, you know, this is my shop and I'm going to buy this many guns, to somewhere around 9 to 10, 11. You know, we started bringing video cameras in there, and all of a sudden, if you're a big fat person, it matters, right? If you're a little skinny guy, it matters. And if you're good looking, you got more money all of a sudden, and your product could suck, but you're good looking, or your wife is good looking, or your husband's got a muscle, or whatever the hell combination worked.
Right.
And all of a sudden there's a different dynamic. And it's like, oh, I'm sure SHOT Show isn't stupid. Like when they've got hot chick, well, you don't know this, but there was a bunch of hot chicks downstairs that aren't downstairs no more. And I don't think that they made more money as much as SHOT Show was like, we're not getting, it'd be nice to have these hot. And it wasn't, I'm not talking like booth babes. I'm talking like representatives or owners of companies in some cases that are like highly attractive. And their companies didn't grow, but then they got moved upstairs and their companies grew, because who the hell isn't going to grow when you're upstairs, right? So anyway, there's a lot of dynamics to SHOT Show. So as it grows from, everybody seeing amateurs to those amateurs, well, right now they're all going to turn into, I don't want to say the word because I'm not here to be mean, but you know what I'm saying? They're not amateurs anymore. In the last couple of years, they've gone from amateurs to pro, whatever, like, or what's the word? Like, I want to say prosumer, but like, semi-pro. And semi-pro in the means that we're going to come up with half-ass equipment that costs us relatively nothing compared to what the TV stations would pay, for their equipment and their staff. But we're going to come up and amateurly take a bunch of pictures of your stuff and charge you really close to what you used to pay the TV stations and whatever to show up and do stuff. And that for a minute. And they're down with that for a couple of years, even until it isn't obvious that this one entity brings in all the cash. Now there's 7 entities like that. Which one do I pick? And if I talk to this one, that one won't talk to me, but this one hates kids. And, right. And then that changes the world. And now, SHOT Show missing a year. What happens when you take an entity like this that's been evolving, and it's been evolving in a way from individuals with hobbies? Because I'll tell you, I remember being the only digital camera that costs like, whatever my Canon or my Kodak digital camera cost me, $60 or something. Everybody else is walking around. Go look at what Mil-Spec Monkey walks around with. Like, I was the alternative to the camera crew possessing your booth for hours while they took catalog quality pictures of your stuff and charged you. You guys don't even remember back when booths used to charge people to do a booth review. That was a thing. You got hundreds of bucks for doing booth reviews back in the day, because you were the only one who had the ability to bring a camera to SHOT Show, and they just paid thousands of dollars to have their booth there, and no one could bring a camera in except for those of us. And a couple of people figured out, oh, wait a minute, I'm paying to go to SHOT Show, but I could be getting paid to do a booth review because I'm one of the few cameras here. That only lasted when it went from like 800 shot medias to 2,500 medias. Now that there's like 25 or 2,000 medias, you can't charge for a booth review anymore. Or, a media person can't charge for a booth review like they used to. But anyway, as that stuff evolves and changes, that's going to, that was just to say that when you take a year off, that changes a lot, right? Because now everybody had to go, and every took a year off while the entire world took a knee financially. So you've got all these companies coming back. They're either going to come back to SHOT Show with, while it's bursting at the seams to be seen, like I need to pay you to make my product be seen because I've just been making a fortune and I'm scared everybody else is making a fortune. So how much can I possibly pay anybody to get my product in front of as many people as possible? To the other side, like, I'm not paying for a dime. Like, SHOT Show better pay me because otherwise I'm out of business. Like, who knows how it's going to come back, or some weird combo of that, right? And then you get the content creators who are like, oh, I can go to SHOT Show because it's nothing for me. Like, I get paid so much, millions of dollars a year. SHOT Show is insignificant. I'll walk around SHOT Show like it ain't no thing, and I'll disrespect and hate on and, make it difficult for everybody because I've already done my thing, right? I'm enjoying my life through this whole thing. And then you're going to get the people that are like, this has to happen. Like, it's, if this doesn't work, then, I got to sell the thing, like, it's going to be crazy. And who knows how those combinations, when you get some of those mixing together, it's going to get desperate. And some of them are going to be just, I wouldn't want to even watch some of these people when they're going to be so arrogant and pricky. It's going to get weird. And then the city, holy crap. And then the city, like, I'm sure Vegas is sitting over there like a fish in the sun, right? Like dying. And when SHOT Show comes, is it going to be like the refreshing straw, or is it going to be like when you see like somebody go to another country and all the kids run up asking for candy and change or whatever they do?
Right.
Like, is it going to be welcomed, or are we going to be, well, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, and are the other conventions all going to pour back and we're going to be the least interesting of the stuff that wants to come back, right? And, you know, now we're going to have to fight our way back to a position. That's just SHOT Show. Then you got every other and national level event is dealing with some version of that, right? And then think of somebody like Bond Arms, who you guys were talking about Bond Arms in somewhere, Gary's or something, chat. And I don't know, have you noticed? And they must have had it at SHOT at the media day, but they have like a little trailer that's all wrapped. I think it's a trailer. Yeah, they have like a trailer that's almost like maybe like something you'd pop up and have like pretzels in or something at a food court at like a fair or something, like that kind of a trailer where there's like a concession type of arrangement to it. Like you walk up to it and there's like a place where you'd normally have like a menu and you'd hand out the nachos or something, but they just put their guns there and you can walk up and it's sort of like a traveling booth, right? And they can just drive up to, like, they go to the Big Sandy outdoor shoot and just set up there. They're like the only vendor there. So it's like they win. Like, it's like every time they drive up and open up, it's like they've got their own, they've created a media day at the range, I should say, media day at the range. So, you know, they go to places like that, or they could go to something like that Oktoberfest or Red October thing I was talking about, or the media day, or I don't know. Is the thing you're going to going to have a range day also?
Yeah, it's on a range.
Yeah, so I'm sure they'll be there then. So like them, you know, is Bond Arms going to be like hitting these things up in a whole different way? Or, you know what I'm saying? Are they going to be hitting it like a wet sponge or like a saturated sponge that's dripping water all over?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember seeing Bond Arms on the list for this. I don't think they are on the one I'm going to.
Is what you're going to POMA? So it's just members of POMA.
No, it is members of it's a collaborative thing apparently with members of POMA, and I'm looking now because I don't remember the other like organization.
Media one or regional one?
SEOPA.
Okay.
Hosted by POMA, SEOPA, and NASGW.
Okay, so POMA is, well, I'm not screen sharing, but POMA is the Professional Outdoor POMA Media Association.
Yeah.
The NAGA is National Association of Sporting Goods Wholesalers. So that's the one that Gun Blast would always go to, and it was in October, and it would have been like it was SHOT Show in October, and so that mostly meant all the stuff way later, but it also meant a couple of companies would debut stuff there for Christmas. So Quinn would always go and get the heads up on a couple of items that would be at that show. Now that show was like, or one of the regional shows that SHOT Show, at one point crushed or collapsed. And then there was another one called something that was one of the distributors. Now, okay, so you said though, anyway, so that's where that show comes from. That has been an existing show for years, long time. It's just that it's about, from what I understand, a third the size of SHOT Show. So it must be about the size of Wanamaker-ish.
Right.
But it is the SHOT Show booths. They literally close up. They go eat Christmas and Thanksgiving, and then they go to SHOT Show with the same booths. So it's pretty much the same. It's just some of the people from SHOT also go to that. So it sounds like POMA has set up with that one, and then what was the other one you said? Ethiopia. So that's
Southeastern Outdoor Press Association.
Yeah, and that's basically the other POMA. There's like 4 POMAs basically, and they're all regional. So that's weird that they connected. So I'm wondering, are the 2 media organizations? So for you as a media guy, there might be some opportunity to hook up and say like, hey, I'm a member of POMA. Why don't you give me a introductory or free year of Psobia, and then you can, because obviously for you they should be paying you to be a member of both of those, but I'm saying, like, you got an opportunity to actually experience what the actual point is of both of those.
Right.
That would be kind of neat. I don't know if you're interested in getting that, but I just mansplained it to you, so I gave you some more.
Right.
But I don't know. That's interesting that they're combining. I know of them only because I'm trying to do all stupid research. And I joined Poma. That was what, $250? It's not cheap.
200.
And was it 200? That was 230, 250.
It may have been when you did. Mine's last couple of years been 200. So
Did you call and bug them, or they just did it for 200?
it's just I just went through the normal stuff, and then the
The only reason
renewal.
I don't think it's 200 is I remember it being a weird number, like it not being an even number. But I could easily be wrong. I'm not good at math and
Yeah.
numbers, and I don't pay attention.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was too much for me. I'm not in that kind of biz. I was hoping it would be more 2A. They didn't give a shit about 2A. I did post a
Not
couple
really.
of things. Oh, they didn't give a shit. Everything I posted went completely unobserved. When I posted, not every second matters, but I think whatever. I did try to do the 2A patch batch there and tried to
Right.
get everybody. And they're only interested in doing commerce, which is fine. I mean, it is a media organization, but it's not like a press organization. I guess maybe that would be the difference. Like it's designed to facilitate marketing as opposed to
Right.
facilitate
Yes,
news. Right? It would be
Correct.
Professional Outdoor News Association if it was some sort of a bulletin board or something, but it's not. It's more of a commerce type of thing.
Right.
Or it's industry. It's more industry than community. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
So anyway, it's
And it's also very broad based with it being outdoors, right? A lot of hunting and fishing,
well, that's true too. Yeah, a lot of other
camping
stuff,
and
clothing
hiking
and
yeah.
camouflage, and boats and stuff. So
conservation. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. A lot of the Ducks Unlimited, a lot of the National Wild Turkey, a lot of the conservation
oh,
style.
really? See, that's even more annoying because I consider that like a nonprofit effort, an awareness type
Right.
of similar to 2A. So I would think, you can't be a hunter without conservation. You can't be a hunter without public lands and all the rest. But or you can, but it's expensive. And then,
Right.
but you also can't be a hunter without 2A. So,
Right.
we kind of dabbled with changing POMA all around, but we're already trying to change the whole industry all around in the community. So we'll do POMA after that.
Right.
But anyway, it's interesting to hear that they're working with the other one. I can't remember what the other one was, but I can't even remember the other one because whenever I researched the third like regional media thing, it was almost defunct, or at least I didn't even include it because it seemed like it was
Right.
dead in the water.
Well,
but I'm wondering if NSSF killed them or if they maybe they just don't need to exist.
Well, you've got me interested in researching and going a little further, and I may do that the day of the event. I may do that beforehand, but a lot of the exhibitors there are not POMA members, right? So it would be interesting to see, are they just randomly coming in? Because you don't have to be involved with POMA, obviously, to they'll take your money and let you exhibit, I'm sure. But so a lot of these. Are they with CEOPA? Are they with anybody? I don't know. Be interesting to see. It's definitely an opportunity to, have a little bit of face time. I'm looking through the media list now, and granted, we're talking about names, not channel names, but actual names here. And just looking through these, it's like I don't recognize a single solitary quote unquote gun tuber or anything out of any of these names. So, and I don't know everybody that runs the channel, their real name, of course, but, it's interesting that, am I going to be one of the very few that's there doing video, or most of these people writers, or, and what's the dynamic having very few, because there's not that many media people on this list. So, what kind of FaceTime does that give me? And some other things. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, it's a media thing, but here's the thing. There's 20 to 2,000 to 2,500 medias at SHOT Show each year. And then you've seen the layout or the, what do you call it? Like the breakdown of it. There's only a few people that bring like carry people or whatever crew. Like most people are there individuals by themselves, or if there were two people, those two people are working. There's very few like, I need like my 4 extras that are just
right
in the count, but aren't really doing anything. So anyway, of that 2,500, I mean, even if you probably know more of them than I do. I'm constantly surprised how many YouTubers there are, but I'm not surprised often, right? It's not like I always find new ones. I just do find new ones.
All right.
I mean, even if I counted every YouTuber I've ever heard of, it can't be 100 or at the most 200 of us, right? All together. Like,
There's way more than that, but yeah.
well, there's anyway. I'm just saying, if there's 300, I'd be very surprised, and I'm talking everybody. Like, there's not that many YouTubers, and I mean, I'm talking gun ones, I guess. I'm not talking outdoor ones, but I don't know how many. Anyway, when you go to SHOT Show, you might see a lot of YouTubers because you're familiar with them. But when I'm looking at everybody in the media room, there's just a lot of writers. Is all I'm saying. There's writers. There's no cameramen because we've replaced all the cameramen. The cameramen were few before, and they're even fewer now. And if there are cameramen in the industry, they're probably taking a picture of a duck or a bird or something, or a moose or something, or a gun. And at SHOT Show, they're just, there's only like 8 cameramen that go to SHOT Show that I think I know them all. But anyway, I'm getting at is that there's a ton of writers, and the reason we don't know them is I'm pretty sure they're all outdoor writers, right? They're all writing for like all those magazines that no one's ever heard of. But, and this is the thing I was going to say, I don't know if you've done this enough because you usually got stuff going on, but I have never, a long time now, I have not had a lot of obligations at SHOT, so I can go at my own pace and do what I feel like, so that I can experience the show. And I'll sit in the media room occasionally, not often, but I'll sit in the media room just at one of those round tables with nobody that I know, just to hear what's going on. And it's just so much outdoor shit. Holy shit. It's like easily 99% fucking ducks and shotguns and weird outdoor shit. I don't even know what they do. They must hate SHOT Show, honestly, because SHOT Show isn't 90% boring ass duck hunting and whatever. But that's most of it seems like. And you know what else it is? The internationals. So maybe the internationals just hang out in the media room. But I notice a lot of internationals, and they'll almost always be ducks or birds or fishing. Not so much fishing at SHOT Show, but outdoor stuff. Anyway, that's what I was going to say. I'll bet you're going to just find that there's just a ton of outdoor writers. And I bet you that they are still the kind of people that are expecting the fancy media room deluxe package. Like, they're not going to be like roll up their sleeves and they're getting there on their own dime. Like, they're getting paid by their magazine to be there. And I'll bet you they're just going to be walking around like they're getting, they're on the clock, basically.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. Are you going to walk around taking video? Is it like, because I can't imagine it's like SHOT, where at SHOT Show they don't want you taking video for lots of reasons, and they tell you, I think they still tell you specifically, don't just go around in the aisles taking video of people. But it's something like that. You got no operators there. You got nobody who's, taking the week off in Vegas or whatever. Like, so I can't imagine they put a stipulation like don't walk around filming. So you could walk around.
Yeah, no, it specifically says, we got an email the other day that's talking about, the masks thing. When you're indoors, you need to have a mask. If you're outdoors, it's not required, but, try to keep a, social distance, a bunch of BS like that. Right. And one of the things did say that by being at the event, you waive your right because this is a media event and there will be pictures and video and blah, 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 blah. So
good. Yeah. See, that's what they need to do really at SHOT Show, because it's easy enough for somebody who doesn't want to be seen to put on something or to not show up. Right. At least anyway. So that's cool. So then, I don't know. What venue is it? Have you been there before?
I've not been there. It is good question. The
what city?
Civilian Marksmanship Program, Talladega Marksmanship Park.
Fucker. I haven't even seen that. I drew a cartoon of it, and it looks fucking amazing. I haven't been there though.
Yep.
I was looking around at it, trying to get a good picture to draw a cartoon of it, and it looks like, and it is brand new because I went through. I don't know if you were around when I was doing that. Looking on Google Maps though, trying to get a good picture of it. Like 2/3 of, you can go back and forth in time on the Google Maps. Like 2/3 of the Google Maps, it's just a forest. So it's got to be brand new.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's just dug into the forest there. It's like south of the actual Talladega. It's like a racetrack or something, but it's it's for CMP.
So yeah, this is the inaugural event, and like we talked about earlier with the lack of SHOT Show and other things popping up. So yeah, I'm going to try to cover a little bit on the event itself and some things like that. It being the inaugural year, right? Kind of document it. X number of vendors are here, approximately as many media people. Here's the range it's on. Just some different stuff like that.
So I was showing you that list of SHOT Shows before. I don't know if I should screen share or not because I think that might have been killing my connection too. But it's not like SHOT Show gives you that list, right? Like go screw you, go figure it out for yourself.
Right.
So that's basically a whole bunch of those numbers are going to the internet and saying how many people attended SHOT Show and then change the date. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's long tail, in other words, for search engine optimization, it isn't fancy, often search data or anything. It would be the kind of very few searches, but you dominate the search type of thing. But yeah, having some info about an event that's inaugural like that, I mean, you're basically cementing your place in all of time for that specific event.
Right.
As being the only data online. And I can't tell you enough how worthless Discord is because it's garbage. Nothing. Have you ever found anything that searches in Discord, like anything that comes up on Google? Oh, we found it in Discord for you. So it's a complete waste of everyone's effort and time. It's literally the epitome of being foolish with your time on this rock because you're taking time and interacting with people and you're hiding it. But anyway, whenever I did that research, it's just all the more cementing and reinforcing the idea of putting stuff on your own websites because that stuff does get snapshotted. And even if you can't afford to keep your website forever, the internet will. And you say something in XYZ on your website, in 2021, I guess, and 2051, even if your website ain't there, there's going to be a picture of it. Unlike Discord, there's not going to be a giant picture of what everything looks like inside of Discord is.
Right.
Probably. If there is, then we're living in a different world. But anyway, for now, for the recent future, for your grandkids probably, or at least your kids, putting it on your own website at least gets a snapshot of it on the world. But I think in the bigger range, who cares about your kids? They're going to know what you say if you want them to anyway. But it's that you're participating in the bigger conversation, right? By actually putting it in a place where the engines can find it.
Right.
But anyway, so now we've been going for a few, and yeah, my problem is I'm not trying to do this as some sort of a thing, and I'm not necessarily trying to attract everybody to watch some kind of an event here. I'm certainly not going to appeal to anybody's fear or anything like that, or be casually nonchalant. I think we're living in a pretty freaked up freaking time right now because we got some apathy to begin with. We got a bunch of these kids that like to look like lumberjacks or whatever and think it's cool to just hate on the old. Which is fine. I was a kid, I understand hating on the old, but the problem is until you build something new, you're just hating on the old, man, and you're being played like a sucker by the other old guy who is you also hate. So that's all getting frustrating. So unfortunately, knowing that you can't do it all means that I'm not going to be super urgent about it. So I'll keep posting these things. This is not my show. Every Second Matters is a collaboration of efforts that a bunch of people came up with. I personally think that a way to do it is to host a show, but you could host a show if you want to post something deliberately or in the week of, or hell, do whatever the hell you want, or don't. But appreciate the people that do show up and contribute to it. You're more than welcome to contribute in the outside chat there. And the people that get invites, that join, appreciate it. And I don't know, do you guys got anything else? I don't want to rush us out the door, but I guess we're hitting the 3-hour point, and at some point, y'all got your own lives to live. Am I cutting us off, though? Is DJ still in here, or did he leave?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Just listening.
I saw you type, and I wasn't sure if you got kicked, because sometimes you get kicked, and then your shadow's still in here. So anyway, yeah, if you guys got anything, Ghost is out there. I think that we're the only ones out here. It says 4. If we're 3 out there and Ghost, it might be just us. But yeah, this has actually been a pretty good one for me. Like I say, I've quit being 2A, so I'm just offering a room for people that want to do the old Every Second Matters thing still.
Right.
But we had a pretty good chat. Like I say, if you guys got something else you want to throw out here, I can't imagine anybody's going to see it at this point. But
Well, I would encourage everybody to go out and do what they feel motivated to do to promote the Second Amendment and gun rights. Hashtagging Every Second Matters on Instagram is always a good thing. Lets us, see some feedback in what's who tags whom kind of thing. And I will, as a matter of fact, on Instagram, be posting Second Amendment stuff today because both of you got packaged to me in the last week. So look for that on my Hashtag DJ Play Nice account.
Did the ammo get there?
It did indeed. Thank you for that as well.
You know,
It'll be part of the picture.
so I sent stuff to Clover and Tony like last year on UPS, and it got lost. So I'm always, I just don't ship UPS if I can help it. So then I ship stuff to dude, whatever. I'm trying to not get kicked off of things. So I'm like, hey, there's some free stuff. You can have everything that's free in this bag, for buying stuff at the store this day or whatever. And then dude won freaking, I don't remember what it was, $32 shipped worth of, stuff that was in these metal things that were in this plastic bag. And I sent it, like say $32 or something. And I didn't even bother to insure it because I got screwed out of the insurance last time. I figure, but because it doesn't affect us like it affects you guys when it gets cold, I guess. So I shipped it thinking it was a Thursday and I'm getting it, or whatever day it was, like, oh, I'm getting it in the mail. Anyway, it got stuck somewhere, and then it wasn't cold anymore from what I could tell. And then really the person thought they were just getting their package. I guess they weren't watching the show or paying attention that there was something to be getting for free. So they just were like, hey, why isn't my thing that I ordered getting here? And then when they got it, they're like, oh, there was extra stuff in here. I'm like, what the hell, dude? Scared the shit out of me having it. It basically hung for like a week, I guess, in one of these, like, it wasn't quite like Clover and Tony's because it obviously got there. But it was, I'm like, oh shit, is it another one of these situations? So anyway, I'm explaining all that because I'm sick of it. So whenever I sent the stuff to you and a couple other people the last time, I just didn't even look. I was just like, it gets there. If it doesn't, I'm just sending it again. This time what I sent to you wasn't irreplaceable. That was, I have more 5.4.
Right.
Well, I thank you again for that. That
Yeah,
was
get the stuff off to Kid because
Jacob S. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't. He didn't say nothing, but I don't know, Clover. Were you paying attention that Jacob bought that 30-06 rifle?
No. I know he was looking into.
Right. Yeah. He was looking, and then one Sunday he goes, "Hey guys, I just got my first rifle." Was it his first rifle? Right? He's like, "I got my first, at least his first 30-06." But I think it's maybe his first rifle. He just had some other gun. But anyway, he was pretty excited, right? And then, he's like, then he tells us, and this is on Sunday morning. Everybody's like, "Right on, dude! You got your rifle, cool, right?" And then he like, "Oh, well, there's like, but they didn't have any ammo." And we're like, "What the fuck? Like, you just got your first rifle and you don't got no fucking ammo?" And I can picture like this stack because I'm a fucking YouTube guy. So I have a stack of 30-06 of whatever, 6 different kind, right? For doing some stupid review back in the day of this Springfield I had. So I sold the Springfield to Good Guy. I don't know if you guys ever met Good Guy. Probably not. A long time ago, Good Guy. And I must have given him that ammo because I could picture it. Whenever we were having that conversation that day, I'm like, oh, don't worry about it, Jacob. I got you covered. And then I don't know, it took me a day or two to go in there and look. And then I'm like, oh shit. And I'm looking everywhere I could think of that I might have had, how big 5 boxes of 30-06 is. It was hunting ammo. So, yeah. And it was like, I had probably bought 5 rounds or 5 different kinds to go hunting with. And then probably shot like a few back in the old days and was like, this is the one I like. I like the silver tip, I think. Yeah. So, or black silver tip, whatever it's called. So, and then I probably just suck it on a shelf forever. And then years later, I'm doing YouTube. And then I'm like, oh, snap, I can make a YouTube for this. So I shot like 4 more rounds, maybe, so there's probably like 6 rounds in each of these boxes of 20. Or 6 rounds missing out of these boxes. Is it 10 or 20?
20.
So, 20. I'm thinking I'm not giving them full boxes, but I'm giving them, I know I've got like 5 different. Now I'm giving him not just a couple of rounds of ammo, but like 5 different boxes so he can go enjoy his new rifle or whatever. And dude, I tore apart everything I have that's the size of 5 30-06 boxes, because I knew they were stacked together. And I knew they were together because that's the only 30-06 I had, except for some stuff in the collection, of course, individual items in the collection or what. But anyway, couldn't find it anywhere. So then DJ sent it over to him, and then I just replaced DJ with a bunch of 54R I had laying around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was actually 30-06 on the shelf at Bass Pro Shop a couple of weeks ago. So, but that's a little early. Had I known,
Well, that's what's so frustrating. He with a little bit of persistence, he's going to find 30-06 all over the place, right? It's not that popular caliber anymore. The problem is that it's not that popular caliber. So, some places probably don't
Right.
bother carrying it anymore, but when they do, nobody buys it. It's just sitting there.
Right.
Yeah, getting him to the range is definitely a good thing. He's such a great guy, and he participates, and it's good to have his perspective on things. And I tell you what, my model 1903, it doesn't need to be fed so regular.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, unless you're hunting with it or something, like they probably just get shot when you feel like it, or somebody new comes around and says, "Oh, can I shoot it?" Right. So,
Yep.
But I think that's neat too. There's something, I don't know. That's one of the things about the gun channels thing that sucks. We're having not having a gun channels thing anymore sucks, because it's just fun to be able to hook somebody up like that. When you think, well, I just think it's fun. When I started using the internet back in the 80s, I think I was using the internet back in the 80s. It was super boring, and it was like going online to check a ticket for an airline instead of going to the ticket, what do they call them, travel agents. And I think it saved money, I guess, because that's the only thing I can remember doing with a computer back in the 80s. But I remember going, damn, you can connect to another computer, and then more games, right? So we knew computers could connect to each other with phone lines. We weren't stupid. It's just that there was no internet, so we didn't know what to do once you did connect them. So anyway, whenever I worked at AOL and I could start to see what was coming, that was the fun part. And at AOL, it was the nation, I guess, everywhere else too. But we started. I don't know. You'd heard people nowadays. I don't even know if people know what pen pals are. But up until the 90s, all I ever thought about was a pen pal, as far as like knowing someone in another state, unless you moved right from somewhere and you knew people there, or your family was there. How the hell would you ever know somebody in Florida or like some other place, right? Like you wouldn't know somebody in Maine or something. Like that was just unheard of. Like unless you vacation there or you lived there, like you just wouldn't know somebody from another place. And then AOL happens, and now it's like, I like fishing, because that's how I started. I like fishing. It's like, oh, I like fishing. And then it was like, okay, fishing's pretty boring, because people that like fishing run the gambit of interesting to a lot of them are not interesting, right? So, okay, big deal. I like fishing. So then it was like, oh, like I like working on TSRs, when I'm eliminating problems from Windows structures and shit. It's like, okay, those people are pretty boring too, but that's super efficient. And now I can find the person who has the knowledge I need whenever I need it, right? So that started to get ingrained back in the 90s. So then we start to get to those forums where you start to get the beginnings of communities online that are focused on areas of interest and not just novelty or whatever the crap AOL was. And you're not afraid to talk about guns because you don't work there. And then you start to see that people start getting angry. And once you figure out a 13-year-old can have a conversation with a 50-year-old, and if a 13-year-old wants to screw with a 50-year-old, it's really easy. And if a 50-year-old wants to screw with a 13-year-old, it's even easier. So it's not conducive to people that are trying to just chill if a bunch of people are screwing with each other. So then, forums weren't perfect. And then YouTube starts, and then whatever. I'm just describing my evolution of experience with communities or whatever. When we finally got to gun channels, and when we started to play with these other communities, it was just neat to know that there were people in other parts of the country that were, not just interested in the same shit you were in, but like for me, collecting bayonets. Holy shit, dude. Collecting bayonets, the AK bayonets, which are impossible to find, but would pop up everywhere. Yard sales, garage sales, at an antique store. You'd be in a gas station somewhere and they're selling a freaking completely unattainable rare Yugoslavian thing for $25 that should cost $350, and you can put that online and be the envy of like the internet, right? Like that happened. And then we had people show up onto the internet from other countries and start to add into the collection stuff. So that was happening everywhere. Anyway, so then the gun channels thing brought that to not just areas of interest and not just like, we like guns, right? Because a lot of people like guns, but these are people that like, in gun channels at least, it was people that were like, I like guns. I like guns so much that I like the Second Amendment, and I like to do something about it. And I'm comfortable enough online that I'm going to jump off of an established bullshit platform that everybody can figure out, like my grandma or my grandkids, but I'm going to jump over to something that's not necessarily the name brand, easy to figure out thing, but instead is like completely authentic and full of people that are like myself. And when you can send a box of ammo to some dude in that community, that's what fucking Gun Channels was. Because you're sending it to, you know, a real human, not just commerce on eBay or yelling at some anonymous username, right, on the internet. You're sending fucking Jacob ammo.
Yeah, I wish I had been around for that.
No, you're in it. Just before we had a website that was crippling me financially, but now we just, you know, it's a bunch of, it's happening on Clover's Thursday show and on Gary's Friday show and on Gary's Sunday show. It's starting to happen on Locked and Loaded. They just don't know it, but they're next. Or they're the next.
Well, they are very deserving.
They just didn't run out of the way fast enough. And they're on Sunday at a time when Rich is talking about wrestling. All right, well, we're getting to the 3 hour, and I don't even know what started that one. Talking about something.
About Jacob.
Yeah, something named Jacob the ammo and how it's more significant than just right, just giving somebody ammo. It's like,
Yep,
that's what it's all about.
no, absolutely.
And that's, you know, that's what I think. That's what I know. That's why I worry about it. That's why I bother putting time into this, because that's the kind of authenticness that the internet offers, and the shallow husk that gets seen from a distance is the billboard, right? That's the bullshit summary that, you know, often, well, has to overlook all the details, but often, you know, gets misunderstood or misinterpreted. And, you know, again, I guess I was talking about the evolution of conversation, how that's meaningful to the Second Amendment community that's inside the gun community. But I think overall it's a reflection of just the, you know, societies, the world societies using this giant information thing together. Maybe I don't know if it's not too off subject. What we don't have yet is a universal translator. The internet's pretty good at translating everything. You have to click a button, but our phones and our tech and our stuff, you know, we're not just talking to Chinese people. Like what we're doing and what I just explained, the phenomenon of what we've been able to do using our tech, you know, the internet to communicate as gun people and Second Amendment people inside the gun community. We don't have that with China or with somebody else, and pick a country that speaks a different language than us, like any language that sounds clicky or weird, you know, compared to ours. Hell, we don't even have it in Spanish yet, which is basically our same language except with a bunch of O's in it.
Yeah. One of the things that, you know, you mentioned that one of the things that I find really, really interesting, it's been cool. It doesn't happen super often, but it happens, is I'll get a comment on a video occasionally that's in a foreign language.
Yeah.
And what's cool is you can copy that, paste it into Google. It'll pretty much tell you what language it is and what it says, right? It'll like automatically figure that out. And then you can take and type up a response and then translate that back into that language and post that into the chat. And it's interesting because it's like that person's not expecting, you know what I mean? It's like they're not expecting you to reply in their own language. And who knows how it sounds to them, right? Because translation sometimes sounds weird. You can almost assuredly tell that something's been translated. But still, you're communicating with them in their own language. And, you know, it's just, you know what they said, they know what you said, and it's just, I don't know, it's an interesting dynamic when we talk about the tech and what we're capable of doing, you know, because, you know, before, I mean, you know, how would you be able to know if somebody wrote you a letter in a foreign language? You know what I mean? Back in the days before the internet or something, you're pretty much screwed. Go to the library, word by word, maybe try to figure it out, right? And now just a couple of clicks and you're actually having a conversation in a foreign language. It's crazy.
No, seriously, that's exactly. I mean, that's a derivation. I don't know what the word is, but that's like a version of what I was just saying. Is right?
Yeah.
I've experienced that. I forget how many, like a number of times. Like I could probably count them. Right. Not including the one weird guy we had that kind of bothered everybody for like a minute. That was like our weird troll from like Sweden or something. that it was just a weird phenomenon for a minute. But excluding that guy, who was a lot of traffic from outside the country. Okay, so first, yes, right, exactly what you said. But then think about what that's the indication of. So on the other side of it, there's somebody who knows enough to watch our stuff in our language, because I don't watch nothing in other languages. Unless
Right.
somebody tweets me at it, right? And there's a lot of it. There has to be a majority of the stuff is in another language for everybody. So they watched our stuff. But now they said it in our language. I was going to say it'd be a little different when you can tell when somebody from another language translates into English and asks us a question, right? Because it sounds weird, but I often appreciate that just as much because they're doing the effort of translating for me.
Right.
And then, so there's that, and we're breaching. But then when that person, like you say, like everything you just said, except for when you do that, you answer them, assuming that it's not, I mean, you wouldn't have replied if it was bogus or if it was trolling, but if it was like piece of valid stuff, you reply to them, and now, yeah, you've just, what is that ambassadorship worth? Like, what is that, what's the butterfly effect of that, right? Like in the world politics and in just everything, right? Like that's amazing. And that's what the internet has the potential. And if that guy gets a response from, what the fuck, I have to assume a mud hut, because what the fuck, we don't know. The rest of the world is mud huts, maybe thatched roofed huts.
Right.
Or like I've seen a lot of videos where they dig holes in sand and live under the ground in little mansions and shit. So I don't know what the rest of the world lives in, but when that guy takes his fucking, your translated weirdness to them and they go, oh, look, like the Green Man from the Americas said, like an answer to our question or whatever, like that's cool, dude. Like that's ambassadorship at some level.
Sure.
And we're all into guns, but I'm sure that's happening with motorcycles and avocados and squirrels and everything else.
Right. Right.
Speaking of that, I watched an interesting thing about avocados. That's why I said it, I guess, is avocados is a big tension because avocados grow in the same climate, cropland, or whatever you want to call deforested tropical zones that cocaine, I think it was cocaine grows in. It was either cocaine or heroin, one of the big expensive drugs. And that's causing all kinds of tension because I forget what they said. I didn't really pay that much attention, but I think it was something like, the farmer can pretty much go either way and make the same amount of money. So they'd like to just make avocados because then they don't get, nobody tries to steal their avocados and they don't have to deal with trying to sell them. They can just sell an avocado. But of course, the cartels are like, we kind of want that land. So why don't you grow our drugs or we'll kill you? So there's that kind of thing going on. So like just when you thought, oh, we figured out a solution, grow avocados. It's like, no, not really.
Right.
Or at least we'll not make it easy. Let's make it really complicated.
Terrible.
But anyway, I guess that got me thinking about the international, but that's where what you're talking about. I think the internet gives us that ability. I don't know if it's going to even take translation as much as, I don't want to say everybody has to learn English, but we'll probably all learn some weird mushy language, like in one of the science fiction shows where everybody kind of has some hybrid language with all the common words from all the different languages, maybe.
Mhm.
Or some kind of shared common words, and then all the specific words are just out, like ordering off a menu. You just go to your specific language for your, if you're ordering this there, or if you're looking for some product that's in some language.
Right.
I don't know. We're going all over the place from guns, but nobody's in here pointing us in any direction, so we're just kind of bouncing around. So I did this one in the middle of the day. I'm going to be on somebody's podcast here in a bit. Some friend of Storm and Norman.
Oh,
Have you
cool.
been on that guy's podcast yet?
Haven't been on Storm and Norman's. No.
You know who I'm talking about, though? The guy has a gun shop in California.
Yeah. I'm familiar. Yeah.
It's not his podcast. It is. Here it is. It's called the Top 3 Gaming Podcast. Jerry. I think he's out of California also.
That sounds cool.
He had Night Strike on and Gizzard, maybe. He had somebody else on. So he's been doing gaming stuff. He's younger and he's doing, just getting his feet wet, I guess, with a podcast. I don't want to say that if he's done more than that, but it seemed like he was dabbling in them. That's hard to say. I've got 1,200 freaking podcasts, so he's starting a podcast, but I don't want to offend him if he doesn't think he's starting it. But anyway, he asked Storm and Norman to ask me, and I'm like, yeah, sure. So it took a while, but I'm finally going on it tonight. I think I still have a while, but I just figured I'd ask if anybody heard about that one before.
No, do you mind throwing the link in the chat so we can check that out, or telling us where to find it?
It's like that though. I don't know what it is. It's one of these kids. The kids these days, they don't use the internet; they use their phones. So it's probably one of those phone podcasts, like what Trenchworks does, and Tony half the damn time. Until I figured out Tony puts them on YouTube after. But they all use their phones for these things, or people that use IG. Although I figured out if I pay attention, if I think about it, you can watch IG live on a computer now. It's easier to go to YouTube and let it tell you when somebody's starting than it is to go to. I don't like having Instagram just open all the time on my computer. Or do you guys even use Instagram on a computer?
Yeah,
I do not.
well, I do as far as like replies a lot of times, hearts and replies and some things like that. But I don't post and I don't watch lives and things like that.
Well, that's the thing. You can only monitor from a computer, really. You can see it, and I guess now you can comment, like you're saying, but you can't even comment good. I think there's some commenting you can't do right.
They have finally got the emojis and stuff put in where you can comment, which is great. But if you screw up the comment, it's hard to delete. That's one thing. I hate the lack of a freaking edit button. I don't know what it is about new platforms for the young kids, and I guess young kids don't make mistakes that they need to edit because for some reason I don't think it's the kids intended. I think the kids are paying prey to it, but I think that's an element of it, and I agree.
Right. It's an indication of the trend, which is to create, and I've said this before, it's not like this is my theory for a while now, that they want whatever the hell they is, would rather see everything be a stream so we forget, so that we don't have archives, so that we don't accumulate. And I used to think of the internet as a big lake, and there were streams that fed the lake, but you were growing a giant lake, a deep, 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 deep lake. And the best thing about it was like an endless lake that didn't have a bottom. You would just always contribute to a deeper bottom. But unfortunately, that became into a waterfall, or it became more focused on the rivers that supply the lake. So while there is a lake, technically, less focus is on retrieving things from the lake, and more of the focus is on sitting next to the flowing water and being fed or being shown, being programmed with programming stuff that you sit and watch. You don't seek and discover. The internet used to be an endless amount of caves that you couldn't figure out. So they created things like Google to help you index the massive amount of interesting things that people would search for, right? We'd search engines. And now people have news feeds where they sit there on a platform like a podcast feed, right? And then you listen, or you sit and watch, and you subscribe, and you get a playlist, right? So they've changed it back to the model of sit and watch, let a few entertain, and we'll deem through whatever practices or whatever, that's a whole nother discussion, I guess. You'll have few people that offer creation of content, and you'll have lots of people that watch it, where, like I say, I have frustration. What I really loved about the internet was when it was, for a while there, it was a much more discoverable, you create something interesting, and there was no sure plan to success. So there was few people looking for success. So it was more of a just create and discover. And then the people that were in there were farting around. It wasn't driven. So that's the problem, is that because it was not, once people did start to figure out direction and drive, then, you get bigger and bigger things. They require funding, and then you require branding, and then you require marketing, and blah, blah, blah. And you have a budget. Now you got to have stuff to bring it. And by the time you do all that, you have massive infrastructure, and it just changes. So anyway, that's just the entire evolution of this whole thing. And we're in it, and we're continuing to watch it evolve here. And hopefully offering some insight and some, I guess insight is all we can offer. This is an awareness campaign after all.
Right.
Some, what the hell am I trying to say? I can't think of the word. Reference, or But really, we're just talking to ourselves at this point. I guess I'm talking to the future. One of the things I forget to do, you do it better on the Thursday shows when I'm listening to it, is talk to the future. When I'm sitting here, I tend to think about who's listening right now.
Right.
Because I like the live. I like having a conversation with people. I don't like to just, blah, blah. Like I got something to say and I'm going to go live to say it, right? So I just talk to fill time and it becomes a waste of time and then nobody shows up to watch it. So that, that's just my own fault. Right. But if you talk to the future, that's what I end up doing on these rants or whatever. I'm talking to the AI at this point because I don't have any delusions that people are going to watch this, but I'm quite confident the AI is going to come in and sweep all this at some point. This will be put into my folder. So I'm just basically letting the AI of the future put all this into digital form for me at some point in the future, right?
Right.
But it's also, I guess, if we throw something out there and ponder it, even if no one hears it, it is going into the future's AI. And think about it. Somebody like me who's interested in figuring out where we're at right now, so we can take a snapshot and offer it to everybody so that we can incorporate that into our plans and our theories and our conversations, and then we're stronger because we all stood on the shoulder. We know whose shoulders we're standing on, and we have a common understanding of where we're at. We become stronger or whatever in the future. If somebody's doing that, what tools are they going to have? Right? They're going to have the ability. Like, remember that time we were doing we were thinking about reading all the emails or whatever about the brace. And I was like, how cool would it be for someone to data mine all this? And Walt's like, oh, I can just data mine that real quick. Hold on. Like what kind of tools are they going to have 10 years from now? Going back to our old clunky internet our old clunky internet. Like if I really wanted to, I could take all the hard drives I've got and suck all the stuff off of them and put it onto like one hard drive that might cost me $200. So I was waiting because I don't have that kind of time or interest. But, I'm just saying that's we have abilities right now that we just don't do, or I don't, we're not all doing. So I don't know what's going to be available in the future is like, oh, that's an app for that. Like, oh, you want to know what everybody said about 2A on YouTube from 2097 or 2009, 1997 to about 2020. Click on the free app on your Apple Watch or whatever, and it'll parse that out and have the answer to you in a whatever the future email is. Or maybe not. Maybe we'll be living in caves.
Well, as far as every second matters goes, I think that to borrow something that Clover mentions quite frequently, I think it's going to be evergreen to some degree. And I'm glad that these casts are here and hope that they endure.
That's the other thing is that these are tagged with Every Second Matters. So if anybody was ever listening to these for any reason, they'd be able to data mine whatever good stuff out of them and make like a series called All the Good Stuff from Every Second Matters, but all the stupid lame stuff.
Right.
Or maybe have an AI. Maybe when I'm 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 years from now, I'll be going to my own app and going, just pull everything good out of Every Second Matters. And it'll know what's good and what's like this wasting time. Just suck all this out. Have you seen anybody doing that? I've thought about doing that with Daily Gun Show, going back and just pulling the good pieces, recycling them.
Well, people do that all the time. That's a pretty common strategy. Most everybody that does podcast do that. It's extra work and what have you, but I mean, one of the biggest ones I think that does it is Joe Rogan. It's the JR Eclipse channel. He pulls all kinds of stuff out. You'll see something that gets posted today, and it was a conversation 2 years ago. But I mean, that topic is popped back up in the news or whatever the case may be, right? And so he said, "Oh, we had a conversation about that 2 years ago." And then so, what better way to take advantage of the algorithms and trends and other things? Go back, chop that little thing out if you can remember what episode it was in or whatever, and then put that up. And it's also a little bit of clout to go, look, we were talking about that 2 years ago.
Yeah, primary and secondary are doing rebroadcasts of previous podcasts with the opportunity then to live chat. And I've been checking them out. I found them based on G's recommendation.
Yeah, I like making people aware of stuff. I don't know if I recommend that one. I definitely will make people aware of it, but it's half the time. I don't want to say half the time. A portion of the time when I'm going to say half the time, maybe. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might be half the time. I've been more surprised. It would have been even more than half the time, but I'm often disappointed when I go listen to their stuff. While I don't necessarily technically disagree, they just I don't like listening to it. And then I sometimes technically disagree with them. The same way that a tactical person or someone who's worked with two-way ranges then versus somebody who's in a competition are going to have disagreements. I have disagreements with people that are in the industry of teaching versus somebody who observes the industry, but just opinion differences or whatever. Fuck, I don't even know where I was going with that one. Definitely just rambling at this point. Like before, I was saying that I talked to the chat instead of talking to the future, I guess, and nobody said anything for I don't know, since Ghost left 20 minutes ago. So I'm just going to end it. We can just chat with ourselves.